With spring just around the corner, it's just another gorgeous day here at the Big A. We're not in Central Park. We're actually out in Ozone Park. Richard Migliori and I on the desk, bringing you today's races that are brought to you by America's Best Racing. Racing from Aqueduct, racing from Oaklawn as well. A fun card. We've got a stake a little bit later on. We'll recap another stake being run. We'll talk about some Derby preps coming up this weekend. Looking forward to spending a few hours with you, Richie.
Yeah, it should be fun. We got a nice card here, a couple of nice New York bred stakes. We just ran one of them, and Central Park had horses out and about too. A beautiful day in the metropolitan area, and no better place to be than the racetrack.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this. Maggie Wolfendale, of course, in the paddock. Paul LaDuca at Oaklawn Park. We've got race to talk about there, race to talk about here as well. There are two New York bred stakes on today's card. We just ran the Damon Runyon. We'll talk about that in a bit, but the Eastview is coming up later. You've got two horses that'll take most of the money in here, and Caldwell Loves Gold, the 6-5 morning line favorite, one of the better two-year-old fillies, New York breds last year, and I just ran into the connections in the elevator on the way up. Is that a good sign or a bad sign or irrelevant?
I think it's irrelevant. We can always kind of put some value on it if we'd like, but no, listen, she was extremely good in New York bred company, never being worse than third. Stepped out. She was only 5.5 to 1 in the Demoiselle, so it kind of tells you the resume she had put together heading into that.
And we show this because it's the Seeking the Ante, and Richie rode Seeking the Ante, I believe, actually, or maybe some of the descendants as well. Yeah. I think she's a closing sprinter, and she's better going shorter. She had a nightmare trip in the Demoiselle anyway. So the question is, was she tailing off last year? Was it getting sealed tracks continuously? Was it more distance? We'll find out more, and the potential flaw for her is her lack of speed, whereas her main competition, Bernie Takes Charge, has a lot more speed.
Yeah, a lot more speed, and she's drawn outside, so that gives her some options. She's been facing, My Main Squeeze, who has kind of emerged early this year as the leading three-year-old filly candidate, New York breds.
She could be a contender for the Kentucky Oaks. Yes. I believe that Windstar actually bought into My Main Squeeze. I think I read that the other day. And this is her finishing second, actually, 2 starts ago, behind My Main Squeeze. I do think that last time out, Maggie and I had talked about this, she may have resented the kickback because she didn't fall back because Trevor McCarthy wasn't riding her. He was riding her. She just wanted no part of it.
Yeah, I thought she broke a half a step slow that day. Maybe saying she broke a step slow is wrong, but she broke a bit awkwardly for my taste, and it kind of put her a little further back than she might normally be, and especially going the mile, I thought she'd be more forward than that kickback he was under a ride, but was not running through it. Outside post today should make things a lot different.
And it's not as though she ran that badly when you look at the speed figure, considering that, and she's capable of better. It's a nice matchup between those two and 5 others in the Eastview, as well we bring you action from all across the country throughout the day. The feature here, as we mentioned, the Eastview. We've got a nice allowance and a very interesting maiden race to close things out, including a horse that a year ago worked extremely fast, the 2-year-old sales for trainer Steve Asmussen. They're good at Oaklawn. They are fast at the Big A, and we want to remind people to head on over to NYRABets.com. If you're not a member of NYRA Bets, no better time than the present. If you join them today, you can play the action on today's program and more while earning up to a $200 deposit match bonus. Use the promo code BONUS200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Join now at NYRABets.com to earn your match bonus. We're just getting started here. So much more to come. We're going to talk about a race that's already been drawn for next Saturday. The 100-point Derby preps begin, and they'll be going 1 mile and 3/16 at the fairgrounds in the Louisiana Derby. More on that, more on our races coming up.
Grindstone. On the outside, Commander's Palace is next. They head now to the 8th pole. And Grindstone takes the lead, but Zod's Magic hangs in on the inside, but it will be Grindstone with the lead, and Zod's Magic back in second. Grindstone wins the Louisiana Derby by 4 with Jerry Bailey.
Last horse to win the Louisiana Derby and the Kentucky Derby was 1996, Grindstone. And that was the day, Richie, when they ran those preps, the Florida Derby, and then they ran another prep. Things have changed, and they've elongated the Louisiana Derby to 1 mile and 3/16 the last few years. The longest prep, the closest, the Kentucky Derby, is 1.25 mile distance, and it drew, as it always seems, to a big field, a field of 12. And you got to think sort of heading it as the speedy Track Phantom, as well as Catching Freedom, who both were second and third behind the talented Sierra Leone in the Risen Star.
Yeah, Track Phantom was drawn outside last time and had enough speed to do things quite easily to make the lead under Joel Rosario, and just got picked off late by a very good Sierra Leone, who really complimented that Remsen last year. Has turned out to be a very productive race.
No question about it. And the Remsen, it's not the first time we saw horses do very well out of the Remsen in prior years with the horse that Mo Donegal, of course, as well as Zandon. Let's hope they get a fast track. I would love to see all these final preps, Richie, be running fast tracks, just to get an idea, because so many of these races have been running wet tracks. And even though he's got an outside post, 1 mile and 3/16, a long run in the turn, the post shouldn't make a big difference in here.
No, a long run to that first turn, a horse with a lot of natural speed. He should be able to find himself in a good spot, if not on the lead, stalking from the outside. And sometimes, it's good to continue to learn things about horses, that they don't need a particular trip like having the lead to be productive.
And Track Phantom continues to run reasonably fast races. Now, Common Defense, we'll see if he can flatter Timberlake as winning the Rebel. But I will tell you one thing. When you give a great ride like Brian Hernandez gave this horse the last time, it sort of puts you behind the 8 ball, because where do you go from there? He can't give him a better ride.
This was as good a ride as you're going to see, and sometimes those rides will get lost because the horse didn't win. But he gave that horse every opportunity, saved every inch of ground. And this was after Brian rode Mystic Dan to victory the start before in the Southwest, picks up Kenny McPeek's other runner and gets the most out of him in the Rebel, just second best.
And he got Mystic Dan in a gold rail down in that race at the Southwest, and he was on the rail in this race. A very nice performance, but such a good trip. Can he duplicate the effort? And I think an interesting wild card in this race is Tuscan Gold. Now, we saw Tyler Gaffalione riding for Chad Brown and Sierra Leone, who gave him a great ride in the Risen Star as well. And this is a horse that Chad Brown's on record as saying, I don't know if he's, he didn't say he's not good enough, but he said, will he be good enough? But I know he's going to flourish the distance. And I thought he was very impressive in his maiden win.
I really like the way he finished the deal here. Sometimes horses are winning by open lengths, and it's just because everybody else's stride is deteriorating around them. I felt like this horse had his legs up underneath him, and that speaks exactly to what Chad Brown was saying. A horse that will relish distance.
And this is a horse that had a big trip behind Sierra Leone in his debut. So it's not like he comes with no credentials. Now, it's a big ask. He's stepping up. Is he going to be a Derby horse? But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does, because I think he's a bit of a wild card in this race.
But that's the fun part of this Kentucky Derby trail, right? That we're seeing horses that are changing, developing right in front of our eyes. And they may have flashed ability, but what you saw a month ago, you might see a completely different horse a month later or 2 months later.
And we may see some of these horses that are just learning, and they'll start coming to their own as we get towards Saratoga in the summer racing. And, we're old. We've been around a long time. When they used to run a lot of races, you don't get a real chance to find out who these horses are, because it's always just a few starts in the Derby, but it really is a fun time of the year.
It was almost unheard of to have less than 3 preps heading to the Derby before, and more times it would be 4 or 5. Now it's a big thing if a horse has 3 preps heading to the Derby.
Well, point given. Remember, he got 2 preps, and a lot of people said that's why he lost the Derby. Well, those days seem to be long gone, but looking forward to the Louisiana Derby. Looking forward to all the action. A lot of good stuff still to come. Heading into today's 5th race, and there's the favorite being saddled by Mr. Wolfendale, Tom Morley. Where's the beat? Race number 5.
Down to the wire, Verstappen. Here's the finish, ancient roll.
War Bomber's won the King Edward. Twilight Derby.
Warfront, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
Charlatan is back, and he turns it on with 1/8 of a mile to go. Express Train moves into second. Nashville dropping out of it, and then Collusion Illusion. What a spectacular return for Charlatan, who will romp in the run-happy Malibu Stakes by 4.5 emphatic lengths. Charlatan, ultra impressive.
It's a new day for a new king.
America's Day at the Races is brought to you in part by Claiborne Farm, 100 years of doing the usual unusually well. As we head to Hot Springs, a lot of action coming there, and nobody better to talk about our action down there than Paul LaDuca in race number 4 at 1 mile and a 16th. Right now, the number 9 on the far outside, Start Singing, is the heavy favorite, dropping down out of a starter allowance. Paulie, how's everything going at Oaklawn today, and what are we going to do in today's 4th race, where I like the 2, Penn Street?
I'm kind of with you. I think the 2's got a shot. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Andy, and Richard as well. By the way, here in Hot Springs, there is a lot of people at the racetrack, but they have an annual parade that goes downtown. They blocked off a lot of the streets, almost 30,000 people. It actually starts off about right now, and the floats go around till about 5 and 6 in the afternoon, and then the nightlife goes on until you need to go home, I guess, and we'll see who goes to work tomorrow after St. Paddy's Day. But a lot of green out here today in a little coolish day. You know, we were 79, and today we're about 55. And right now your favorite is on the outside. You were talking about the 9 as you're seeing the post parade in here. But your favorite, I mean, deservable favorite, because this horse does have the best numbers, Start Singing. My only worry here with this horse, this is a Minnesota bred, that the best races have been in Minnesota bred company. And I thought there were some other options you can go in here. I thought the 6 that's going to go through your screen right here looked the best on the racetrack, Big Bad Diva. Now, I know Timothy Martin is 1 for 78. The 1 win was with Christian Torres, and about 5 of those seconds. So when he does put Christian up, his horses do run. The 8 is very interesting to me, Lantern's Candy. I say this all the time. Lindsay Schultz, phenomenal on the stretch out. She gave this mare just a race last time out to go on the stretch out. Been in some good barns, though, but, you know, she's over like 35% when stretching out. And here's your favorite, the 9. I think the barometer in this race, you know, after that good second place finish, I do think, I mean, she probably should have won last time, but I do think she could be beatable today at 8-5. And I'm going to get back to the 1, Andy, #winner. And the reason why is, you know, if you look at this horse, all of last year, this horse was running against the bias at Ellis Park. We talked about it all summer at Saratoga, how horses at Ellis Park that were front-end speed horses were not doing much, but horses from off the pace were, you know, sort of the horses that were suffering there at Ellis. And this horse now comes in from Turfway Park. Steve Asserson claims the horse, hits the reset button. I think the 1 is really dangerous in here at 6-1.
Thanks a lot, Paul. You always value your opinion. Paulie's been having a tremendous meet down at Oaklawn Park. And, you know, one of my problems with the 9, and the 9 does feel like sort of the speed of the speed, but breaking from that post, Richie, can he clear either or both the 4 Sheehan and the 7 Undecoded? 2 horses that could be a little bit forward in this race.
Yeah, it's a tough task coming from the outside post. And, you know, we talk about a lot. Now, these are horses with a lot of experience, but even with that empty space the outside, you've got to have a horse's attention and come out running, because if they take that step to the right and you got to correct them, that stutter step is going to cost you, and you could get caught wide the first turn.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Well, that race will be coming up momentarily. I like the 2 Penn Street stretching out for Robertino Diodoro, but we got a lot more going on at Aqueduct as well. Let's head down to the paddock and hear from our friend Maggie Wolfendale for the first time today.
Well, Andy, as Colloquy sits at 9-5, he looks fantastic here in the paddock, though I will say I've always had my reservations about him handling the 9 furlongs, but perhaps at this level it'll be a moot point. But a horse that I'm kind of intrigued getting back out to this 2-term mile and an eighth is first off the claim number 6, Candy Tycoon, who, yes, I agree, off of his last race, which was off of a near 6-month layoff, he's a little tough to trust, though he was against the track that day. It was a gold rail day, and he was chasing out wide where Ryan's Cat was able to wire the field. And I've always thought that longer is better for this guy. I just wish with the Rudy claim here that he looked better in his coat. I mean, usually Rudy's horses are incredibly well turned out, and he just looks really dull and drab in it. So maybe he needed to start too, because he does look fit, he does look strong. And like I said, I like getting back out to this distance, though the front wraps do go back on for this effort. He's intriguing. Just wish I was getting a better vibe here in the paddock. Is number 7, Majestic Frontier. He comes in here off of a big effort, and he kind of got the right trip, though, last time. He actually, I think, got a better trip than what the winner did in that affair. But I like what I'm seeing from a horse that I've never observed pre-race before. Very healthy, great coat to him. Now, again, like with Colloquy, I wonder a little bit about the 2-term mile and an eighth, because he's a little bit more compact. He doesn't necessarily have the physical frame of a horse that wants to go this distance, though I will say his pedigree says, yeah, he should be okay being a son of Keen Ice. Andy.
Thanks a lot, Maggie. We'll be getting a lot more from Maggie throughout the afternoon. And the mile and an eighth distance important in this race as they're heading towards the gate. For race number 4, the first race we'll be covering at Oaklawn. Anything you want to say before they get the start going, Richie?
I like Paul, thought the 1 was kind of interesting. Hashtag winner, a horse that, you know, maybe the form's a little dirtied up because of those synthetic track races with. Past dirt races certainly make her competitive here.
And Paul's point about Ellis Park, where it was very hard for much of the meet to make closing runs, is a good one. And Paulie's been on top of his game. I threw him in the exacta with my number 2, Penn Street, who I like a little bit in here for Robertino Diodoro, who has good numbers stretching out Oaklawn Park for the first time today. Let's get a call from Matt Dinnerman.
To the outside, Start Singing for the Jonas Gibson barn. Start Singing. Goes it. We're ready to go. And let off. Good beginning from Undecoded, who's sent out of there. Sheehan has speed. Penn Street gets a tap on the shoulder to get into it. Is down on the inside on the tail of Sheehan, who hits the turn in front. Undecoded second. Penn Street third to the inside. Will Start Singing is a little deep on the course, about 3 pass off the rail. A joint third with Penn Street. Another length back to Big Bad Diva. Then comes Lantern's Candy. Hashtag winners down on the inside within 5 lengths of the lead. A half length to Right Trap and 5 more to My, who's at the back of the pack racing alone. Approaching the backstretch code, Undecoded, Ramsey Zimmerman showing the way. Start Singing moves up to come and challenge with Francisco Arrieta. Those two a neck apart down the backside. Penn Street runs in the 3rd position between horses. Sheehan is backed off the speed, races inside of that rival. A half length to Big Bad Diva. Lantern's Candy, they're side by side. They're 2 better than Right Trap. Hashtag winner has dropped back to the 2nd last spot, and My needs to get going, is still well behind as they charge into the far turn run. Undecoded loses the lead to Start Singing, and Start Singing getting towards the rail now and kicking on to a 1.25 lead, a 1.5. Undecoded second. Lanterns Candy getting into it now, takes the second position while confidently ridden. Penn Street has dropped back with She Be Sheehan as they hit the quarter pole. Start Singing is the leader. Lanterns Candy now gets the reins shaken at her to get going. Swings to the outside for the final 3/16. Start Singing still in charge. Start Singing by 2. On the outside, Lanterns Candy. Here comes Penn Street, re-rallying between horses. Start Singing, but Penn Street is gaining ground fast. Penn Street after Start Singing. Start Singing, Penn Street. Even Big Bad Diva getting into it late. Penn Street on the outside. Penn Street got it. Penn Street with a well-timed ride by Harry Hernandez. Start Singing second. Big Bad Diva third. Photo for fourth.
Once Harry Hernandez could get Penn Street outside into the clear, he really kicked in there, not running inside of horses. More from Oaklawn later as they're hitting the track for race number 5. The one, Phoebe's Frosty off a long layoff for Marcelo Arenas and Romero Mirage.
Yeah, long layoff, a horse that has speed. Tough to come back going a mile and a furlong, though.
Looks like the speed, though. Hang tight, Louis Rivera riding this one for Jesus Romero.
Deep Closers was okay for 10. This is for 20. Big step up.
Colloquy, the current favorite and horse to beat, Tom Morley and Dylan Davis.
It just makes a lot of sense. Finds himself in a very good spot for the 20,000.
Logical drop down. Daced for Freedom, coming off a win, but moving up for Eddie DeLauro and Sammy Camacho.
Man, got to walk on a dawdling pace last time. Kind of controlled things on that slow pace.
Very good ride, though, by Jose Gomez last time. Lord Gatling, another one, speed. He goes out for Wayne Potts.
He comes off a big win in that first claim off the Wayne Potts.
Manny Franco is riding the number 6 Candy Tycoon for Rudy Rodriguez. Currently the favorite at 3-2.
Yeah,
it's a big punch.
It is a big punch. This horse's race is fast enough. The last race, though, well, it was a muddy track, but left a lot to be desired.
The board just changed precipitously, and a bet on Lord Gatling as well. What's going on here? The number 7 rounds out the field. Majestic Frontier. Trevor McCarthy riding for Ralph D'Alessandro.
It comes off a big effort last time. It kind of got there and maybe just hung a touch.
So we started this post parade, and the 3-horse was 2-1. Somebody made a huge bet on Lord Gatling to make him 5-2, and Candy Tycoon as well. Not really sure what just happened there, but let's talk about the 7 Majestic Frontier, who Maggie touched on it when she was talking to the Paddock, and both the first and second finishers benefited from a very good trip. They got pace in front of them, patient rides. I agree with Maggie. The Majestic Frontier got a slightly better trip, but Trevor gave the winner, and she wasn't saying he didn't. A very good ride as well. But that one had to go around while the Red Sea opened up for Majestic Frontier.
Yeah, I mean, you could have put, several horses in the size of the gap. But he hit the front like he's supposed to win here, and he doesn't get it done. And with that kind of a trip where, like you said, the seas parted and you have a clear lead coming to the 16th pole, that's
and the other thing was he was 19-1 that day, and now he's 9-2, and he'll be coming down as those bets will sort of normalize after a while. But obviously he ran well enough last time, and he has run well around 2 turns at other racetracks as well. Talking about the number 5, Lord Gatling, will show his last race, especially considering he took a big pop. Maybe Wayne Potts is going to get this horse to run back to it, but at this point, he's close to a 1-number horse, isn't he? In a very different scenario. And do you really think he's going to get the lead for sure here with the 1 and 4 in this race?
No, I think if he's going to be effective, it's going to have to be stalking. I can't see him clearing, particularly the inside horse who's coming off a layoff, and those horses are usually fresh. This was a big effort. Wayne Potts' horses have been running well. If they're not winning, they're running well, and they usually look good in the paddock.
Like a lot of claiming trainers, Wayne can be extremely streaky. We've seen, I remember a couple years ago, a period of time where his horses seem to be running off the screen. They're either running really well or all running sort of mediocrely, and it feels like Wayne is in one of those periods where his horses are running well, and we see the board normalizing quite a bit as the number 3 now is back to being co-favored with the 6 Candy Tycoon, and Lord Gatling drifting up and probably drifting further, Maggie.
Yeah, for his backers and supporters, they will hope so. As Lord Gatling, as you guys were just mentioning, Wayne Potts with his claims seems to be hitting and firing on all cylinders as of now. And 2, it feels like his horses physically, when observing them prior to races, have kind of turned a corner too. Now, Lord Gatling is a horse that typically doesn't carry much weight, can be a little bit nervous, maybe just not your proverbial good doer. looks much better in his coat. His weight is a touch better. He's just a lightly framed type of horse, but he does look a lot better in his coat, which I interpret as a good sign. And he looks like a horse that should be okay with this 1.8 distance, 1 for 2 at it overall, and likely to show some speed in here, though it feels like for that rare 9 furlong race that there are some horses that could go here, including the one Phoebe's Frosty. Now Hang Tight is hoping that some sort of pace does develop, as he's one that never gets away well and often leaves himself with a lot to do. He can be one that gets wound up. Today, not the case. Usually runs his better races when he's a little bit more relaxed, and furthermore, he gets a fast track. He doesn't necessarily love a wet track overall, at least as of late. And I like what I'm seeing from him here for Jesus Romero. Next to Colloquy, he was the next best turned out horse in the paddock, Andy.
Thanks, Maggie. Always good to get Maggie's thoughts on the races, and it's just a different angle on it. One, you're more familiar, Richie, and you spent a lot of time in the paddock between the combination between handicapping and looking at horses physically. And, it's something I've talked about with Maggie since she first started working with us. The very best thing that Maggie does, and she does many things well, and she's actually turned into a very, very good handicapper as well, though she's not really handicapping so much in the show, is she sees a horse in the paddock that's a big price that catches her eye. And what Maggie does is keep notes on how they've looked over time, so it's relative paddock watching. And if you can point out a 30-to-1 shot that looks especially good today, and that horse finishes even third in or fourth, and people use them in their tries and supers, that's a value that she can really provide, because it's very hard to see a horse in the paddock that's a 30-to-1 shot and say, this horse looks so good it's going to win, because they're 30-to-1 for a reason for the most part. But she is extremely good at finding long shots that will outrun their odds.
Well, don't you think it's identifying horses that outrun their odds, or on the flip side of that, a horse that's a shorter price that's making a bad impression, and is not looking as good as it normally looks?
One of the first beginning of Maggie's employment here, she was critical of Uncle Mo in the paddock for the Wood Memorial when he finished a disappointing third in there. But it's not the only time. Maggie's got the courage of her convictions, and at times it gets her a little trouble. People don't love hearing their horses don't look that well, but the reality is you can't argue against her track record as far as she's careful. She's not going to just do it. But there have been times she said, and she's come to me and said, I like this horse. And she said it on the air, and there have been short-priced horses that have run badly. She has an extraordinary eye for horses.
She really does. And I would hope people out there, and usually it's connections of horses that get upset, is understand this is our job. And we're trying to provide information to the public that's going to help them be successful handicapping. And, my boss years ago told me, Steve DeMauro, when you talk to owners about their horses, talk to them like you would be a teacher. If you wouldn't call a kid dumb, right?
Right.
But you have to be able to be truthful.
No, you have to. You have to be honest with them, because that's part of the problem also of the game, is that people aren't honest with themselves about their horses, and they're telling their trainers to run them over their heads. You win races by running horses where they can win. The worst thing in the world is to run a horse that's ready to run a big race, and it runs that big race, and it runs fourth or fifth because the horse was running above its head. You've got to run them in spots they can win. I think that's very applicable to the number 3 Colloquy in here. The horse was claimed for $25,000. He's running where he belongs. Let's get the call from Chris Griffin, today's 5th.
Is in. All set. And they're off. Hopping at the start there was Colloquy, is going to be the early trailer. Phoebe's Frosty right out to the front and unopposed. Phoebe's Frosty and Romero Mirage, they'll get the lead, and they're quickly up by 1.5 lengths. Right there tracking in behind. Moving forward, there comes Candy Tycoon out wider. That's going to be Majestic Frontier, who's now taken third. At the rail is Lord Gatling. Following that is Dates Freedom. The 2 at the back hang tight. And after hopping at the air, Colloquy is the trailer. Unopposed still on the front end. It's all Phoebe's Frosty. Went 23-4 for the opening quarter mile at 13-1. Phoebe's Frosty takes into the back stretches up by 2.5 lengths. Candy Tycoon is well settled there in second, progressing forward there with Majestic Frontier. Is ranging up from third, is now only 1.5 lengths off the leader as they start to bunch up here in behind Phoebe's Frosty, who's still in front. Down at the rail, that's going to be Lord Gatling. Tight hold here. Dates Freedom wants to go for Camacho Jr. The 2 still at the back, Colloquy. And Hang Tight is now the trailer. 48.41 for the half-mile time. Phoebe's Frosty has had it all his own way, but Phoebe's Frosty's going to try and take him all the way. And here comes Candy Tycoon, is within a neck of the leader. Under drive now is Majestic Frontier. Tight hold towards the inside. Lord Gatling nowhere to go. Colloquy is in between horses making a run. Out wider there is Dates Freedom, and Hang Tight still the trailer. Candy Tycoon has taken the lead. Colloquy continues that run, and here comes Colloquy, 4 wide. Colloquy is 4 wide, and Lord Gatling still bottled up in behind rivals. They reach the top of the stretch. Majestic Frontier is the leader. Majestic Frontier's got the lead. Colloquy with every shot down the center of the racetrack. Now getting loose is Lord Gatling, but lost some ground there. It's Majestic Frontier, but Colloquy is just battling on here inside the final furlong. Majestic Frontier won't go away for Trevor McCarthy. Colloquy and Dylan Davis right back at him up in the outside. Majestic Frontier with a neck back in front. Majestic Frontier gets the victory. Majestic Frontier over Colloquy. Then came Candy Tycoon and Lord Gatling in 1 minute 51.59 seconds.
Sure felt going around the turn into the stretch as Colloquy was going to blow by and win comfortably. But getting a slow break may have cost him that position. But Trevor McCarthy and Majestic Frontier would not be denied.
No, and it was a tale of two trips. Majestic Frontier sitting just off the speed after braking well and putting himself in the right position in the race. Colloquy braking slow. He had to work harder to get to that position, so there's only so much gas in the tank. By the time he got there, he had to use more gas than he would have if he had gotten away cleanly. Just an unlucky break. But you got to give high marks to Majestic Frontier and how game he was. He really dug down, found a bit more, and Trevor McCarthy, a good strong finish from him. And Trevor gets best of both worlds. He beat him last time with Hold the Flight, and then he picks up the mountain and gets the win here.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, that's actually a good point. And yeah, it's no fault of Dylan's. He just broke a little slowly, and I thought Dylan rode him extremely well. Colloquy after that, sort of nursing him along into position after that. But you give up a little bit at the start. At the end of the day, he had his chance, but the break hurt him. But you know what? Give the credit to the winner of this race, Majestic Frontier, who got the winning trip.
Yeah, I mean, and it was just unfortunate that nobody's fault. The horse kind of hopped at the break, and it's just one of those things, bad timing. If the break comes a split second earlier or a split second later, maybe he gets away in stride and he doesn't have as much to do. But yeah, good effort by the winner, though. I like when horses fight for it, and he certainly showed a lot of fortitude.
Nice run down the stretch. This is the bread and butter horses of our racing, putting in these good efforts. And nice to see Ralph D'Alessandro. I want to say it's his second win this week. I think I somehow managed to find a winner of his earlier in the week. A lot more to come, though. We're just getting started on America's Day at the Races. We saw an upset. Steve Asmussen had a couple in there. It wasn't the shorter price, though, that got the job done. More in the Whitmore when we come back to America's Day at the Races.
Whitmore comes to the 16th pole, and he's pouring it on. Whitmore, a budding sprint superstar. Look at him fly. Ivan will be second. It is Whitmore to crush the Hot Springs. He's a length and a half in front of Holy Boss. From the outside, Mo Candy, but Whitmore comes to the final 16, drifts out just a bit, but he's got lengths to work with. Here is Whitmore. Yes! Whitmore has the lead. Win time, trying to spring an upset. Whitmore, win time. Whitmore! Whitmore's gotta go. He's still 5 lengths behind, and Smart Spree's inside the furlong marker. Win time is alongside. Smart Spree gonna have to dig down. Now Whitmore explodes in the center of the track, and look at him fly. Whitmore has to go, and he did. Wow! Whitmore, who's trying to win this race for the 4th consecutive year, and he just ran right on by, and he's gonna run away and score. Whitmore, yes!
Here's Whitmore, here's Whitmore, here's Whitmore, here's Whitmore striding forward for the lead in the final furlong of the Breeders' Cup Sprint. What a day in the career of this 7-year-old. Whitmore and Ron Ortiz Jr. have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Whitmore was quite a racehorse, and a horse that shows when a horse has some longevity, he can build quite a fan base. Well, a lot of us, myself included, thought the Jackson Traveler was the one that would get Steve Asmussen in the winner's circle, but Rivet, I'm sorry, it was Jackson Traveler that got it done, winning quite the head bob over the co-favorite in this race. Teano Twist, a tough beat.
Very tough beat. You get Flavien Prat here on Jackson Traveler for Steve Asmussen, and a race that really didn't deserve a loser. These two horses threw it down. And just what you said, Andy, though, Whitmore was so popular because of his longevity. People could latch onto him and look forward to him coming back, and for him to have his finest moment at age 7 winning the Breeders' Cup.
If I had horses and somebody offered me a lot of money to retire myself, the 3-year-old I hired the horse or me, I would take the money as well. I don't criticize owners for doing that. But when they have a chance to stick around and they do what Whitmore did in the racetrack, and it's even true of some of the hard-knocking claimers, you could develop an affinity to these horses when you see them over the years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, horses don't run as often in this day and age, but years ago, you'd have these hard-hitting claimers here running basically every 2 weeks, and you kind of almost set the clock by when they were going to be in. And horses like Creme de la Fête, you know, they became fan favorites because they competed on a regular basis.
No question about it. Well, when there was a close photo, we went to you, Paulie, and you were the man who said that Jackson Traveler, and I'm quoting, got the bob of life to win the Whitmore.
Yeah. Yeah, he really did. I mean, it was a phenomenal ride by Flavien Prat, too, because, you know, I think a lot of us thought, and I think even Steve even thought that Rivet and Keith would maybe push towards the lead a little bit more. But what he ended up doing is he kind of tried to rate, and you know what Flavien did? He kept Jackson Traveler so far out in the racetrack and sort of slingshot, and he knew that Teano Twist was coming, because Teano Twist is always running late. And listen, he was buying the jump before, and then Jackson Traveler got the nose down. And listen, there's no secret why that happens. You know, Flavien Prat is that kind of jockey, and sometimes that kind of jockey can make the difference. But Teano Twist is such a neat horse, got no pace to run into, and still almost ran down Jackson Traveler. And so a lot of people will say, well, I mean, yeah, you know, Jackson Traveler didn't really have the races coming in, you know, Andy, but you go back and you look, this horse every once in a while, 97 buyer, and I wonder what the figure came back yesterday. You probably know that.
I do, but I believe it or not, Paulie, I forget. I'm getting old, but it was somewhere around there. But you're right. Occasionally he runs well, and you give the credit to the winner. And Flavien Prat, I agree with Paulie, an incredibly great rider. But Teano Twist was an extremely unlucky loser with that slow pace that he almost overcame.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for a sprint race at Oaklawn, for them to go 22-2, 46-1, usually they go out much, much quicker. And this just kind of shows you when a horse puts themselves in the race and sets up their trip. Jackson Traveler was always right where he needed to be in that stalking position.
And it's often, I should say, the case with Flavien Prat. He is in the right spot, turf, dirt, long or short. We had a nice 2-year-old stake here on the Cicada, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But they had a 2-year-old stake down at Oaklawn, and Esternia got the same figure, winning the Purple Martin, an 85 figure. And Richie, this was an impressive win.
It was an impressive win, and once again, a horse that put herself in the game, right? Always traveling where she needed to be. And it's been interesting to see at Astern, the stallion, Australia, he was a turf sprinter. He's been getting some nice runners sprinting on the dirt.
No, and this was a very good performance. And listen, it's never too early to dream. We talk about the series of races, the Victory Ride, the Test, the Prioress, and Saratoga, the last two being up there. These are important races, and you look at Orsa Sterney, I mean, who knows, it's a long year, but she has a right to be mentioned as a possible player in those kind of races. And I think they're all looking right now at possibly running a race like the 8 Bells on Derby Day.
Yeah, you would think that would be a logical next step, but, you know, you've got to give this horse a look. Thinking about those races going forward with this kind of effort, she put separation on this field quickly the last 1/8 of a mile.
No, and she beat a horse on the outside who'd been running extremely well, got another good trip, and was just no match for her. Very impressive performance by Esternia in winning the Purple Martin down at Oaklawn. Well, we'll take a look at the winner's circle for race number 5, and a hard-fought victory for the eventual winner of this race, who probably was an overlay, Majestic Frontier.
It got a real nice trip. You know, we talk about starts of races are so important no matter what the distance, from 5 furlongs to 1.5 miles. You don't want to give anybody an advantage off the break. Majestic Frontier broke sharply, set up shop just outside the leaders, was always in position. Colloquy with that, you know, hop at the break, a little bit of a slow start, was a little further back, had to make up that ground. And then Majestic Frontier was tough, and he was not going away quietly into that good night. He fought back. No, it was a nice race by both those horses, and Colloquy the start. But Majestic Frontier had to negotiate the outside post as well, as we're heading closer to race number 6 at Aqueduct. And I thought race number 6, one of the more competitive races on today's card. And you look at the board, and any of the 1, the 4, the 5, the 8, and somewhat surprisingly, even the 9, I'm not exactly sure why that horse is taking some money, but all those horses taking some money looking at the multi-race bets. And I think this is one of the more competitive, bigger fields, in fact, biggest field we'll have all day. Yeah, and it is very competitive, and I think it comes down to trips, because I do think there's any one of 4 that I could identify. If I was riding, I would like to ride.
No, and I think one of the biggest questions is, you know, do you trust the number 8, Colonel Varga, who had been a big drop down, avoided claim. He's been a vet scratch since then. You're taking a look at a horse I like in here, the 4, FF Rocket, trained by Lolita Shimangel. More on him and the others in race number 6 after a break, as America's Day at the Races continues.
The Cross Country Pick 5 combines the best racing from New York with top races from around the country in one bet. Find it in your track menu and play every race day. Races are posted weekly at NYRA.com/crosscountry. General admission tickets are on sale now for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival at Saratoga, June 6th through 9th. Admission is just $10 on Thursday as well as on Sunday for this historic event. Visit BelmontStakes.com/tickets today.
Liam's Map, a 2-time Grade 1 winner with 6 consecutive triple-digit buyers, including a 114 to win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He's already taking the lead as a sire, with Grade 1 winners Basin, Wicked Whisper, Colonel Liam, and Juju's Map, plus multiple 6-figure yearling sales and 2-year-old sales up to $1.2 million. Proven on the track, proven in the sales ring. Liam's Map, only at Lane's End.
Racetrack Television Network brings you every race, from every track, on every screen, every day. With monthly packages starting as low as $5, RTN gives you great value and access to more live HD streaming and race replays than anyone. Visit RTN.tv today to sign up and watch on almost any device, including Roku and Amazon Fire. RTN has packages that start at $5 per month.
Welcome back to America's Day at the Races. Taking a look at the new hotel, or relatively new hotel, at Oaklawn Park. A fun place to visit. These horses are heading towards the gate for race number 5. Let's get more from Paula Duca.
No, thanks, Andy. We got a tough one here, field of 12, and that's what ends up happening with a lot of these races here at Oaklawn Park. They're tough. I mean, they really are to get through, and this is not an easy one as well. We'll start with the 5 in here, Ball Gown. And the interesting part about Ball Gown is, 4-1 looks like might go off as your favorite. As we'll go through the post parade here. Eyes on point for 2-time or 3-time Kentucky Derby winning jockey, or 2 times, excuse me, Calvin Burrell in the ride. Invaluable's going through. This horse off the claim is 9 for 36 lifetime. You look at a lot of this field, this horse does have the most lifetime wins. So a horse that likes to win a lot. Now the 4 in here was about 30-something to 1. Is down to 12 to 1. This is, as this post parade's a little bit delayed. I think this mare is the lone speed in here. I just don't know if she can continue going on. She needs to clear. We'll talk about Ball Gown in a little bit. Doc 7 goes through. We talk about this a lot, Andy and I and Mig and everybody on the show. Dan Ward is just dangerous off the claim, and he's been dangerous this whole meet, and he puts a bullet drill into the 7. So I think this horse is very, very live. The 8, Mia Baby, goes through for John Horan, who's been having a monster meet with some monster prices. Abby the Bulldog right now is your favorite, and the issue with her is she just falls out of the gate. Do not expect her to break well, because everybody thinks she's going to break well. She doesn't. She's had 26 starts. I would say 20 of them she's broken dead last, but she's going to come running late. It's just whether she's good enough or not, whether she has the pace to run into, the 11 and the 12. The 12, Awesome Birdie, I thought ran a really good race last time out, for Gennaro Garcia. Now Kenny Jensen takes over the training for Martin Schwann and maybe could lay a little bit off the pace, but they're all coming out of, kind of the same race. So to get back to Ball Gown, the 5 at 5 to 1, I think the reason why this horse is not taking any money, the horse has never won over a fast racetrack. Is only 3 wins, or 2 over a wet track and 1 over the turf. So that gives me pause. I think the 7 has a big shot at a nice number. So I'll go a little 7-9, because I do think Abby the Bulldog is good enough that she'll hit the board in here. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't leave the 4 off the ticket, because the 4 breaks a flyer. The 4 could lead this merry group around for a while.
I'm with you, Paulie. I think the number 4 is the speed of the speed koala. I boxed 4, 5, 7 in this race. I think Paulie and I have similar ideas here. Koala could be the speed. Ball Gown could be relatively close, but I cannot pass up on Dan Ward off the claim with sprinters off the claim, and he's just really got on his own. He's 5 for 14, 8 hitting the board, and an ROI of just under $4. So that's where I'm going, Richie. Any quick thoughts?
Dan Ward has worked for Top Horseman his entire life. Obviously, Jerry Hollendorfer, and he was absolutely the right-hand man in a lot of big stables, so it's nice to see him out on his own doing well.
Yeah, and he's really started off doing well, and that was one I circled in there. Competitive field, we'll see what happens. I agree with Paulie. These races are never easy at Oaklawn. If you're able to come close to a winner, sometimes you feel like you did something right. They are almost in the gate for race number 5. Matt Ditterman with the call.
In the Campbell family colors. 2 back, She Dazzle. An Awesome Birdie. She Dazzle coming up to the gate. Awesome Birdie to the outside. Here's Awesome Birdie. We're ready to go. And Laroff. Having to take up right at the start was Abby the Bulldog. Awesome Birdie on the far outside, getting into the race early. She Dazzle has speed. Mia Baby between that pair. Even Doc 7 moving up to contest the pace. Koala's there as well. A scramble for early supremacy down the backstretch. Running in the 7th position, coming back to midfield here. Shania in the orange jacket, along with the favorite Ball Gown. And Invaluable, who's down on the inside of that pair. They're 5 better than Tenacious Lady Winya Bay. Abby the Bulldog is second to last, and Eyes on on point is the trailer as they round the far turn. Koala emerges from the crowd up top to take the lead and opens up that lead to a length and a half. She Dazzle under pressure. Doc 7 sent along from that position. Awesome Birdie's trying to rally. 4 wide coming to the top of the lane, and now those 4 are across the track. Mia Baby right behind them under pressure, and Valuable next. Ball Gown's got to get going as they come down the lane. Awesome Birdie, grandstand side, has the lead now in the center of the track. Awesome Birdie, Abby the Bulldog is let loose, and she's coming fast. It's Awesome Birdie still in front, but for how long? Abby the Bulldog bearing down. Abby the Bulldog on the outside runs by to win. Abby the Bulldog over Awesome Birdie, Ball Gown, and Winya Bay, who is 4th.
Talk about a deserving winner, Richie. The number 9, Abby the Bulldog, was basically eliminated at the start of this race. And for anybody to bet anybody else, including me, I thought, well, that's good. The favorite just got eliminated at the start. Well, she won anyway.
Man, she had 6 or 7 lengths to make up, still turning for home after that calamitous break. And just look at the way she reaches, sticks her head out, her neck lower to the ground, and just runs by the leader late. Nice ride by Rafael Bejarano. Best thing a rider can do when something like that happens at the break is just get very calm and play the hand you're dealt.
Yeah, and I mean, the 12 Awesome Birdie ran well to be second, but was second best. The best horse won race number 5, excuse me, at Oaklawn Park. Ron McQuett and Rafael Bejarano getting the win. And Abby the Bulldog, they are in the paddock for race number 6. Anyone want to let me know? We're going to talk to Maggie. We'll take a look at the number 8, Colonel Varga, in this race. And Colonel Vargo is in a lot of ways the horse to beat, and probably comes down from that 7-2. But Richie, he is a tough horse to trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot's transpired, right? This horse being avoided claim last time. And it was a nice effort, a big win. He opened up and got a little bit leg weary late, but this was a period of time when the track was extremely slow.
But it was a time when speed and the inside were good, and while he drifted in the stretch, he was the speed and he was on the inside until the stretch. Trevor McCarthy took advantage of that gold rail to be second at almost 50-1. Since then, he's been entered and been a vet scratch. He was a big drop down that day. I just do not trust this horse, and I'm very curious to hear what Maggie thinks of Colonel Varga and the others in the paddock.
Confused matters that much more, Andy. I actually think Colonel Varga looks good. I have actually never seen him in the flesh before for David Jacobson. You know, it was odd. He was entered on March 10th and scratched, and he is one that had worked 2 days prior to that. So I don't know if it was a blowout, maybe he didn't, come out of it that well. I don't know, and I understand why there's reasons to have reservations about him. But at the end of the day, it feels as though he, in a 6.5 furlong race, he could be pretty prominent here and could be the speed overall to take them yet again on a merry chase. He's dappled head to toe. He looks fit enough to me. I get it. I'm a little leery of him too, but I cannot fault him at all here in the paddock. Now, on the outside is a Pennsylvania shipper, and that's Dynamite Karma, or I should say a Mid-Atlantic shipper. He ran at Laurel 2 back. Was run down late by the heavy favorite, Keeping It Country, at Penn National last time. But also, that was going longer. And while he has a race way back when at this sprinting type of distance that makes him competitive, I just feel like looking at him, he's probably more suited to a bit more ground. It allows him to get into the race, and I feel like he's a horse that does want to be involved early. Makes a great impression on me overall, shipping in here. A little bit nervous, kind of internally, not expending energy, but, it just seems a little bit nervous. But overall, looks as though he ships in here in fine fettle, Andy.
All right, well, we'll see how things work out as the horses are on the track for today's 6th race. We start with the one striking speed, Manny Franco, riding for Carlos David.
Yeah, comes off a good effort, showed, some speed, should be forward here with Manny.
The number 2, Gokhan Kokakaya, looking for his second win, Charlie 5-0 for Rudy Rodriguez.
And this is another horse that likes to be involved early. Does he add to the pace?
Giovanni Paredes is riding honorary degree for Randy Persaud.
Yeah, nice effort, too, back. Last time stepped up in company in a muddy track and didn't break particularly well. Could rebound.
FF Rocket, Romero Mirage, riding for Lolita Chimango. My choice.
I think he's the most reliable closer in a race with a lot of speed.
First Deputy got a big win last time. Dylan Davis for Wayne Potts.
He came with that big run. Another horse that's a closing type in a race with speed.
The number 6, Anything Passable, Eduardo Jones and Jackie Davis.
Well, anything is passable, but he would be a surprise.
He is a big price, 10-1 on Mr. Phil, who, if nothing else, has some speed, going out for Amir Shishakli with Sammy Camacho.
Interesting now, as a 7-year-old, they take the blinkers off, kind of an equipment change after a poor effort.
He's never been effective without the lead. The number 8, Colonel Varga, is and will be a shorter price favorite. David Jacobson and Isaac Castillo.
Well, again, there are questions, but these horses do have to go through rigorous protocols to be okayed to race, particularly when they've been a vet scratch or avoided claim.
And are we waiting for Beato to cut into to ride Dynamite Karma? He rode here when he was an apprentice, didn't he? Wasn't he here riding about 10 or 12 years ago?
Yeah, I believe so. Sometimes they come out with the wrong colors, or they come out with house colors, and they go, wait, our silks are in there, and they send the rider to go put the proper silks on.
One of my favorite moments in Saratoga is that filly sprinter that I love winning the Prioress. And they had, I guess, the substitute silks, and here comes the rider for her, and rode the substitute silks for the win of the Prioress. And then they changed the silks, the normal silks, for the Winner's Circle celebration.
Happened with me in the personal ensign.
Really?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to draw a blank on the filly's name now.
That's right. Ava Star, is that the horse I'm thinking of?
No.
The Prioress winner. No, I'm thinking the Prioress winner.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yes.
John Kimmel's filly.
I think I know you're talking about.
Broad brush filly.
Yeah, I bet her. She was a horse for Three Chimneys.
Three Chimneys, but it was being sold to the Farish family, and I went out with Farish colors, but Pompeii. And they weren't taking the ownership of her until after the race. So she won the race in Farish colors, and in the winner's circle, I put on Robert Clay's colors. So in the win picture, she has his colors on.
That's great. I remember that. I'm trying to remember who the favorite was in that race. Was Beautiful Pleasure the favorite?
Beautiful Pleasure.
She really never. She just
bore out
wasn't
badly.
As good. Yeah, she just didn't want to run anymore.
Yeah,
I remember. You came through towards the inside, but they're on the track, and there is the 8.
Well, that was the kind of hole I was coming through at that point in my career.
That's not fair, Richie. You're a man of great courage. Don't kid yourself out there. And there's Colonel Varga warming up, and Maggie had good things to say about the favorite.
Yeah, and listen, that gives me more confidence about Colonel Vargo. I have utmost respect for Maggie's opinion, and I could actually even see the dapples on this horse on TV. I prefer others. I'm looking for more of a closing type in this race, and I kept going back between the 4 and the 5, FF Rocket and First Deputy.
Yeah, I went to FF Rocket. My feeling was I thought I want to bet against Colonel Varga. I know Maggie had good things to say about him, and I respect that. I'm betting against him. And I felt the 1, 4, 5, and 8 were the major players. So I thought the 4 might be the biggest price of the 4 horses. Now, as it turns out, the number 1 Striking Speed, who I believe Maggie likes, is a generous price off the claim, and I think he is a good price. But I felt like there could be maybe enough pace. And FF Rocket, he's run his better races for Lolita Shimango when she had him before he was claimed for his last start.
Well, it's interesting, right? She had the horse for most of his career, was claimed. 1 start for Robert Falcone, claimed back. The one constant recently has been Romero Mirage.
And Romero has really made the most of the opportunities he gets. It's not, listen, it's very hard to get real chances. You've got, even in the winter, you've got an extremely strong core of riders here, but Romero gets a chance, and he has done well with it. I think he's ridden very, very well, despite the fact that he's related to Rajiv Mirage. It's not an easy thing to overcome.
Oh, come on.
Rajiv going to Oaklawn. For the Arkansas Derby.
He had some success there, didn't he, win the Apple Blossom for Terry McLaughlin?
7th Street. It was a pretty productive dam as well. Multiple Grade 1 winner. And I believe she may have did she break her maiden in the winter here? For some reason, I want to say that's the case. Yeah. Also, Little Bell broke maiden with Raj for Kieran and went on to win the Ashland. We're going to take a quick break in just a few moments as we're going to get ready to welcome in a new audience on America's Day at the Races. Want to welcome people joining us on SNY to watch America's Day at the Races, covering all the action left at Oaklawn Park as well as Aqueduct. Richard Migliori, Andy Serling, Maggie Wolfendale's down in the paddock, and Paul LaDuca will be joining us from Oaklawn Park. We've got a beautiful day here. We've still got a few races left at Aqueduct, including the Eastview for the New York Breds. Let's get more from Maggie Wolfendale as they head to the post.
Well, Andy, you're absolutely right. It is a gorgeous day here at the Big A. And we'll start by talking about, on my end, the horse that I'm going to land on. And, Andy, I'm having one of those days where I pick horses on paper, and then I don't like what I see from them in the flesh. As Striking Speed, his new trainer, Carlos David, off the claim, has very good numbers with his dirt sprinters. He's 10 for 35 with a positive ROI. But I've seen Striking Speed look better than what he does today. So we'll see. It's kind of a race where I'm not exactly sure how the pace works out here. I'm hoping Manny Franco does assert himself and get a good forward position, as FF Rocket's hoping that a lot of other people keep the likes of Striking Speed and others company. He's looking to close here, and he looks great. Granted, he's a horse that typically does carry good weight, good condition, and is the picture of health. But as Andy said, interesting with the reclaim by Lolita Schigmingle. Guys?
See how things work out. Of course, Maggie did Talking Horses, the pre-race handicapping show with me today. So she's sort of stuck with her picks, and Maggie's, obviously, her expertise is down the paddock. Richie, I've gone to the 4, you've gone to the 5, First Deputy, looking for back-to-back wins.
Well, I just think they're the two logical closers, and I'm looking for a horse to rally from off the pace.
See what happens, but Colonel Vargo is the favorite for race number 6. They head in the gate, should be forward. Will there be much pace? We'll find out in a minute. Let's get the call from Chris Griffin.
FF Rocket and Dynamite Karma. Is in. All set. And they're off. Off very awkwardly there was Honorary Degree, the early trailer. Colonel Vargo's got early speed. It's Colonel Vargo right out towards the front, and Charlie 5-0 is in that early mix as well. Also joining them, that's going to be Mr. Phil. Mr. Phil and Charlie 5-0, they go at it. Just off of them is going to be Colonel Vargo is settled in third. Wanting to go there. Manny Franco Striking Speed. Tight hold here is in the 4th position, right in behind those leaders. Just to the outside of that one comes Dynamite Karma. It's a big gap already of about 5. Back to First Deputy with less than 4 furlongs to go towards the back end of the field. Anything Possible is back there, trying to run on with FF Rocket and slow starting Honorary Degree. 22.35 for the opening quarter mile. Charlie 5-0 is back in front. Mr. Phil not going anywhere. Ranging up on the outside, here comes the run from Colonel Vargo, and Dynamite Karma is 4 wide at the rail. Striking Speed, maybe going to wait for some room here. 5 across the racetrack here as they reach the top of the stretch, and it's still Mr. Phil in between horses down towards the inside. Charlie 5-0. Colonel Vargo's trying to push on by. Dynamite Karma is now straightening up. Colonel Vargo is in front. It's Colonel Vargo. The oncoming Dynamite Karma to the outside is the gray. It is Colonel Vargo who's still up by 3/4 of a length. Battling on to the inside is Mr. Phil. Colonel Vargo almost there. Colonel Vargo gets the win. Colonel Vargo wins it over Dynamite Karma. Then came Mr. Phil in 1 minute 16 and 1.
Well, we saw a competitive pace up front, but none of the closers able to get into the race. First Deputy lost the race at the start, but seemed to be steadied out afterwards. FF Rocket had no real close. Colonel Vargo, Maggie liked how he looked in the paddock, and she was right. He ran his race today. Very good effort and defeat, though, by the 7, Mr. Phil, the big price, who hung around for a share, as nobody picked up any pieces here.
Well, and you had made the comment, Mr. Phil runs when he's on the lead, and he was right on top of it. And Colonel Vargo was in a good spot stalking from the outside. And this is when Maggie's assessment of horses' physical condition in the paddock is an invaluable tool. Because if you had questions, which you and I both did, about Colonel Vargo, at least that gives you a bit more confidence if you fancied him to say, okay, well, he looks like he's doing well. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to fit the puzzle pieces together. What we see on form, on paper, and what we see from horses in the flesh. And this horse was very good. He shook off a hard challenge from the 9, Dynamite Karma. Who
they were right to be betting that horse. Yeah. I thought they were crazy, and they were right. The horse ran
hard, just was second best. And I would give the 5-horse First Step, you didn't have the chance because he took the worst of it at the break and had to work hard just to get back in the race.
And also, when you consider how the race was run, the fact that the pace never came back, it made his job even
Held
easier.
together.
Getting in trouble at the start and then trying to close into a pace, while at least honest, it never came back. Now, maybe it just didn't come back partly because none of the closers really ran, but Colonel Varga gets his picture taken. I'll be interested to see if he's claimed today, because he was a voided claim last time. We'll see what happens. A lot more to come on America's Day at the Races. We saw a very, very nice 3-year-old filly at Aqueduct yesterday, and Galea Princess winning our Cicada. And we'll take a look at her and much more when we come back on America's Day at the Races. Welcome back to America's Day at the Races. And we'll see Colonel Vargo heading into the winner's circle for his connections. Trainer David Jacobson, Isaac Castillo with the mount. And you know what? He was best.
He was best. He was very game. He ran to his looks. Got high marks from Maggie in the paddock. And how about his rider, Isaac Castillo? You know, he's spending more time here in New York, but going basically back and forth to Oaklawn Park and making an impact in both places.
Now, Ramon Vasquez is going to be coming here in the spring as well. I don't know if Isaac's going to be staying here or he'll go back to Churchill Downs. But he's ridden here well. He's done a good job here over the winter. So whether he stays or he goes, he's acquitted himself quite well and gets the job done at Colonel Vargo. Poor David Jacobson. Be curious to see who claimed this horse and see if, in fact, it's not voided today, as Colonel Vargo. Maggie had good things to say and got the job done. And a very important question has been answered up here, by the way, which we'll be getting to in a second. Race number 7 is the East View. It is the co-feature on today's card, New York bred fillies, going 6 furlongs, and Caldwell Loves Gold, currently the 7-5 favorite, and will be a slight favorite in all likelihood over the number 7, Bernie Takes Charge. But the first debate has been over. Richie and I thought it was Cicada. A lot of people told us it was Cicada. But the MIG, he went right to the source, looked it up on his iPad, and it is apparently
Cicada. It was pronounced clearly Cicada. You heard it, too.
I heard it.
It was right before we came back from
It was the
commercial.
Migliori family pronunciation website, but nonetheless, it was Cicada. So we're going with Cicada.
It would be Cicada then.
But we saw, I know she was a heavy favorite. But it doesn't matter when you're evaluating horse flesh what odds they are. They could be big price or short prices. This was a very, very impressive performance by this runner for Brad Cox with Manny Franco. Gallia Princess in her third start. She's getting better and better.
Man, she's getting better. And this was a fast race throughout. It's fast in the beginning, fast in the middle, fast late. And she's a big strapping filly, you know, by American Pharaoh, really reaching out, covering ground. And the key to the race was Manny being able to extricate himself from that rail position and set up shop outside Reconcile.
But wasn't this a perfect example of what you talk about when you say getting your position going forward? She broke well from the rail, which she hadn't done in her second start, and Manny rode her into the race. But Jose Lozcano was more aggressive on the 5. But by Manny riding her in the race, when Jose was aggressive, there was enough separation so she could easily move to the outside and set up shop.
And it was a prime example. This is what you should show apprentice jockeys when you explain it. And that horse clears then, and you're able to ease out smoothly to that outside perfect trip. And that's why speed and using your speed to get your position going forward is critical.
And creating separation, people say, well, it's only a 4-horse field. Those are the kind of races that you see riders getting themselves in trouble because the fields will bunch if the pace is too slow.
And everybody's aware of where everybody else is, so they bunch up, and if you've got the favorite inside of you, it's not like in a big field where you can get lost and there's other things people are contending with. They can key on a particular horse.
Yeah, and Gallia Princess gets it done, and we'll see bigger and better things for her as we head into some bigger races throughout the year. The Damon Runyon was run a little bit earlier today, and we saw a matchup that on paper felt like it might be a 2-horse race between Antonio of Venice and a horse who was able to beat him in his last start, Mischief Joke. Well, frankly, the race turned into a joke.
Yeah, Antonio Venice was aggressively handled once again by Manny Franco and took them gate to wire, and he was decidedly best. This was just a really impressive effort from him.
No, he absolutely trounced the field in this race. A fast race, and also it's nice to see as the weather's getting warmer and everything is turning around, the track is playing a lot more quickly as well. And we've seen some nice performances over the week.
Oh, the track is decidedly faster than it had been the majority of the winter. And so we're seeing horses run, quicker times, but impressive performance. This horse went geared down. This was a really nice effort.
It was a good performance, and obviously, listen, the winter is tough on everybody, and the track maintenance crew as well, when you've got a lot of rain coming in, and the temperatures changing, and cold weather, and obviously as things get nicer, it's just easier for everybody, and this is such a great time of the year with a lot to look forward to, including our stake schedule. And of course, the book is out for those of you interested. Conveniently, the first grass race will be run on April 20th, also known as 420. But here's the stake schedule leading up to Wood Memorial Day, Biagio's Rose, a horse I know you and I were a fan of. The Excelsior, but then leading up to that big day on Wood Day with the Carter, the Gazelle, the Distaff, and the Bayshore. A fun day of racing, Richie.
You know, looking at the stakes at Aqueduct, and of course I rode Biagio's Rose, such a nice hickory mare, Bobby Robato. Yeah. And I won every single one of those stakes except the Excelsior.
Really?
I never could get the Excelsior. All the other ones I got at least once. I never won the Excelsior.
What a failure.
Isn't that kind of weird? Like, the one that eludes you?
If somebody, Well, I know you won the Wood Memorial because you rode Eternal Prince.
Yep.
I was here, and he beat a heck of a field,
Proud
including
Truth.
Proud Truth, who
Yeah.
was the eventual Breeders' Cup
Roman
Classic
Rule.
winner.
I mean, it was a good group.
As you know, I loved Roman Rule. That was a good race. I can still remember watching that on the main floor here at Aqueduct. So much more to come on America's Day at the races. Richie and I will be back, and it was a big day at Oaklawn Park. A lot of great riders and great trainers and talent from the past in racing assembled at Oaklawn Park. More on that and more racing to come on America's Day at the races.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
your guide to selecting a stallion for your mare. Step 1, make sure he's won a big, famous race.
Mystic Guide charges away and takes the Dubai World Cup.
Step 2, he'd better be very good looking. Step 3, he must have excited the support of breeders with quality mares. Mystic Guide. He's unmissable. Call Darley.
Quality at his core.
And Core Beliefs will come on and win it nicely.
My leading sire, Quality Road.
And here is Core Beliefs to take the lead. Core Beliefs on the outside. Here it is. Core Beliefs.
All the best attributes of his sire, a multiple graded stakes winner who's proven at the classic distance with tactical speed and a must-see physical.
It's Core Beliefs who digs his heels in to win the New Orleans Handicap.
Core Beliefs, standing at Walmack.
Welcome back to America's Day at the Races. And what a celebration yesterday at Oaklawn Park for Hall of Fame Day. A lot of great talent from the game assembling yesterday, and they were there in full force, including my main man, Nick Zito, who is always the guy in charge of any conversation.
Yeah, I ran into Nick a couple times at DeLuca's for dinner, but
guessing he's popular.
What a who's who of racing greats there, and you see Angel talking with Ramon Dominguez there, and just what a great celebration. Steve Cawthon, one of the classiest individuals I've ever had the privilege of meeting. Great day.
No, absolutely. And for those who've been around a long time, and we have, you can remember what a phenom Steve Cawthon was in the 70s when he first arrived in the scene. Of course, won the Triple Crown as well. Paula, you got to rub shoulders with some serious talent yesterday.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of it was just an amazing day for somebody like me who grew up watching horse racing and then becoming a professional athlete myself, and to watch and to hear these guys tell stories and riding against each other. You know, horse racing reminds me a little bit of golf. It's such an individual sport, but then you got to go back into the same locker room with the guys you're competing against. It's a whole different animal. I just think people don't realize that. And, you know, talking to guys like Steve Cawthon, who at age 18 won, you know, the Triple Crown, and to be able to deal with that adversity. And he even told me, he said, listen, 9 months later, I was out of the country. And I think the best part about it was, Andy, the best quote of the day was, I asked D-Wayne Lucas, and Steve Asmussen was right behind him. I said, D-Wayne, how many of these Hall of Fame jockeys have you taken off your horses? He goes, every single one of them. Then Steve started dying laughing. I go, Steve, you're on your way as well. It was an enjoyable day. It really was.
It was a lot of fun, Paulie. And one thing about Wayne Lucas, he did not mind taking a rider off. But we were talking about Steve Cawthon before, and what an incredible phenomenon he was. And I know, Richie, you had a chance to meet him in the early days, even before you started riding.
He was 18 years old. He wins the Triple Crown on Affirmed, and I was outside the racing office. I was 14 years old, and he was coming in, and there were reporters around him and photographers, and they were just mobbing him. And I made my way through the crowd, and I shook his hand, and, you know, Steve, I want to be a jockey like you. He took me down to the jockey's room with him, away from everybody, sat on the bench and talked to me for 5 minutes like I was the most important person. Here's a guy who didn't have 5 minutes. And he taught me a valuable lesson that day, how to treat people and how to handle yourself. And further on, going down the line, 2 years later, I broke his apprentice money record in Saratoga. The first call I got when I got back to the jockey's room was Steve Cawthon calling from England.
That's right, where he was changing the game over there, where he really did with his aggressive riding as well. And yeah, no, Steve is a great ambassador of the game as well, and he was a phenom then. But another guy who, let me tell you something, I spent a lot of time with our friend Paul LaDuca. You're somebody, Paulie, that you know how to treat the fans well. I have never seen you not take time and be nice to the fans, and there are a lot of them that come up to you, especially in Saratoga.
Well, I appreciate that, Andy. You know, my father always told me, you know, one day they're going to forget about you. Remember the people that love you. And you listen, when you're a professional athlete, there are going to people to be skeptics and people that are going to be haters. But you also got to remember that there's people that, you know, I'm blessed that DM me on certain different platforms and say, hey, I wear my number because of you. and that brightens up anybody's day. Or somebody comes up to Mig and said, hey, listen, I patented my riding skills after Richard Migliore, Mig. And you know, Mig knows this too. There's no bigger compliment from your peers as well. So that's what made the Hall of Fame day so great, is that they were just complimenting each other, having fun, and some of the decisions were made. And, you know, Stevie Cawthon talking a little bit about Eddie De La Houssaye helped him out coming to New York. So, like, you know, you guys, it's amazing to me how these Hall of Fame jockeys and Mig, to my estimate, should be in the Hall of Fame, how they are just helped each other out, yet they're competing against each other. It's just a weird dichotomy. Okay, let's get on to this race. Talked a little bit too much about it. The 7 in here promises to dance. Okay, the issue that I have with this horse is, you know, Brad Cox runner dropping for 20. I get it. But this horse, I think she needs the lead. And I thought there were some faster horses in here than her to get the lead, especially the 9 Wings from Above is very quick. I think the 5 has got a little bit of lick. I just don't know if she's going to get a comfortable, you know, trip from where she is. And to get to the 8, Essential Business, I think she gets into the flow of the race. She broke very well last time. And Harry Hernandez sort of like grabbed a hold of her, and she kind of dropped a bit, and then she got back into the race and then re-rallied on the outside. I think today, if she breaks a little bit better, she's in the flow of the race. And I just think the 7 at 3-2 is just not a good bet. I'll go with Essential Business for Steve Asmussen, who did have 3 wins on Hall of Fame day.
Thanks, Paulie. I'll be interested to see what happens here. I was kind of hoping the 9 could get the right sort of trip as a speed. I agree with Paulie on the outside, that maybe that could not the speed, if not the speed could be in a good stalking position. I thought the drop down would help, but Essential Business, who Paulie likes, coming off the claim for Steve.
Yeah, and, you know, how about Keith Asmussen, his son, emerging as one of the leading riders? Listen, Christian Torres is in a, you know, all by himself, right? He's opened up. But Keith had moved into 2nd in the standings, and he's really just shown a remarkable improvement and just continues to get better at his craft, and it's been fun to watch that evolution. Wings from Above does look like real speed, though, huh, from the outside.
You know, you talk about Keith, and you know, I say it, and I can say it now because you're riding so well. When he first started riding last year at the beginning of Oaklawn, I was saying to myself, this guy's not a rider. And, you know, like, good luck to him. And even his father wasn't riding him that much. And you saw him improve almost overnight, where by the time the meet ended, he was clearly a guy who more than belonged in that room, and he's continued to get better.
And what makes it even more remarkable was he never rode with the benefit of a weight allowance. He was never an apprentice jockey because he couldn't make the lower weights. To make that kind of improvement and continue to get better, having to ride heads up from the first step, from the first race, instead of getting that 10-pound break in the weights. Now, obviously, listen, he has Dad in his corner.
But his dad wasn't riding him that much at the beginning. But he started riding him more as he started winning.
Right, he's running a business, and he has to, you know, take care of his owners
And he has owners going to say, I don't want to use him, I can get better riders. He's Steve Asmussen, he can get his pick of the riders quite often.
Exactly, but I'm very proud of Keith and what he's been able to do. And if you want to have a good time, and I'll tell anybody out there, go to YouTube, put Paul LaDuca in the search engine. You want to see a hard-nosed competitor and some of the plays he made as a catcher. Incredible.
Well, Paulie is popular for good reason. Let's get the call of the 6th from Matt Ditterman.
To the outside. Here's Bugaboo in the red jacket. We're ready to go. And Laroff. Great beginning from Wings from Above, who's sent out of there and grabs the lead. Wings from Above clearing off, opening up 2 on Diva Treva, who runs in 2nd. She's bulletproof 3rd with Keep Me in the Moment. Promises to dance, usually towards the front of the field. Today she's stalking the pace, about 4 lengths off the loose leader, Wings from Above. A gap of 5 back to Lofthouse, 1.5 lengths to Essential Business. HT Zena's 3rd last, 2.5 ahead of Shanghai Express. And Bugaboo well behind now, running 15 to 18 lengths behind into the turn. turn, Wings from Above, where she likes to be out on the lead. Strides in front, a length and a half, still have a line of runners. Keep Me in the Moment's already giving way. She's done. Between horses, She's Bulletproof's getting closer with the favorite Promises to Dance, who's 3 wide. Diva Treva finds herself in a pocket. Lofthouse is making a move, gets to the outside for the top of the lane run, and then comes HD Zena, Shanghai Express down the lane, Wings from Above in front. Here comes Promises to Dance. Here comes Lofthouse on the outside. Promises to Dance trying to get Wings from Above. Lofthouse 4 outside, Shanghai Express. 16th to go. Here comes Shanghai Express flying on the outside. Promises to Dance got the jump on her though. Promises to Dance, Shanghai Express photo. Very tight. Shanghai Express at 29-1. And number 7, Promises to Dance at 2-1 in the photo for the win.
Paulie has mentioned quite a few times how John Horan has been having long shots run. I don't know if Shanghai Express got the bob, but it was close at 29-1 with the number 7, Promises to Dance. My horse, Wings from Above. Paulie was right, was fast, but just a little bit very late. We will get the results of that photo in just a moment, but the horses are heading on the track for race 7. Let's get more from Maggie. Oh, I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought we were going to Maggie Wolfendale. I apologize there. Horses heading the track for the East View, and we'll come back and we'll let you know as soon as they post that photo at Oaklawn who got the win, the 1 or 7. But the 1, Caldwell Loves Gold, Manny Franco riding for Brad Cox.
Yeah, her 2-year-old form was very good. You can expect a faster version of this filly coming off the layoff.
Coming off a win of Sweet Brown Sugar, Paul Barrow and Jose Lizcano.
Real nice effort last time. It should be forward.
The number 3, Solo Shot, has plenty of speed. Lolita Shimongo off the claim.
Plenty of speed. Is going to have to get a bit faster, though.
I'm a fan of the 4 Bustin' Time, just not in this condition, and was foolishly rated last time. You got to think Dylan's going to let her roll. It's actually Lolita Rivera's going to let her roll today.
Yeah, trained by Robbie Davis at Bustin' Stones. They're honest. They show up.
And it was the number 7 holding on for a narrow victory at Oaklawn Park. 13 red flags. Isaac Castillo looking for back-to-back wins, this time for Amira Shishakli.
Yeah, closing type. Would hope to get some speed in there.
Turning back is Rumant, who won first time out sprinting Brian, and Kendra Carmouche. And here comes the 7, the second choice, almost the co-favorite. Bernie Takes Charge, Trevor McCarthy, riding for Dominic Scatino.
Yeah, 1 for 1 at the 6 furlong distance. She makes a lot of sense to me, and I think she'll be more forward than your favorite towards the inside. Caldwell Loves Gold. The post and the fact that she'll be closer, she's my top selection.
I jumped the gun, but she's here with us now. Let's go to Maggie Wolfendale.
Sorry about that, Andy. I knew they were coming out. I didn't want to have to rush you guys through a post parade or miss one, as it's gotten quite windy here, doing that racetrack crunch when you get the dirt blown in your mouth. As number 1, Caldwell Loves Gold. She is your 6-5 favorite coming in off of a layoff. And it's always funny watching these horses develop, especially when you get to see them at 2 and then you consistently watch them and maybe they have a bit of a layoff and they come back as older horses. Well, Caldwell Loves Gold as a 2-year was just a bit bigger, a bit more imposing than the majority of her counterparts. And 2, because she was longer and bigger, I thought that going longer would be good for her. But now as she has developed, I do like the turn back, is she's just stronger behind now. She hasn't necessarily grown up or anything. In that respect, she's just filled out. And she's built now more like a sprinting type. And she comes back in here sharp, which is always a good sign too. But she does have the layoff to deal with. And she does look a touch soft. She does have 5 solid workouts coming into this effort in this East View, but I just wish at a short price she looked a bit more defined. But I think, you know, they're sticking to their guns. She is a closing sprinter. As number 7, Bernie Takes Charge, she has the recency over her main competition. And furthermore, you look at the last time she turned back from a mile to a 6 furlong distance and she won. And then she subsequently had a very fast effort and a runner-up performance in the Franklin Square. And last time she, I think, just reacted negatively to the kickback, as you guys were talking about. You know, you watch that replay, there's snow on the ground, and when it's cold like that and you have a heavy racetrack as it was, that kickback feels nearly like rocks. I'm sure Richie can expound on that and what it feels like out there. But horses, they don't want to run through it. So Trevor took her wide around the turn out of the kickback, and she was able to re-rally a little bit. She's her normal self today. She's always an energetic type, kind of on the muscle, giving her groom some fits, but warmed up beautifully, great coat on her, and she's the first horse that I picked on paper that I really like, looking at her physically too. Do want to mention number 6, Rumint in here. She comes back with 2 bullet efforts. Now, over workouts at Fairhill. Now, you always take the Fairhill workouts with a little bit of a grain of salt because there's no official clocker there. But yes, a 47-2 over the dirt there is kind of intriguing for a horse that doesn't necessarily look like she wants to go longer, so turning back makes a lot of sense. And she was nowhere near the lead last time, which I thought was weird. So look for her with Kendrick again to be more forward. And again, it was that heavy racetrack, getting the kickback. She probably didn't appreciate it. So she was sharp, but contained in the paddock, and she looks great. I thought she was a little bit intriguing as a long shot to use underneath, Andy.
Thanks, Maggie. And, we learned from Maggie one of the reasons the Mig is the way he is. She was getting hurt with those big dirt clods.
Well, it's always interesting, too. Some horses react negatively, and your very best horses get mad. And they grab the bit and they want to go after the horses in front of them.
And it's also probably a bit of a learning experience. And that's why a lot of first-time stars, you see them unaccustomed to it. They get used to it, and they're not as confused when it happens.
And even if they've been schooled in the morning behind other horses, the kickback doesn't come back as hard in the mornings because you're not going as fast a pace. And in the morning, it's a controlled environment. You're working with other riders. In the afternoon, they're working against you.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens here. As neither the 1 or 7 have a lot of speed, but the 7 who Bernie Takes Charge, who's favored now, has more speed, and Caldwell Loves Gold can drop back a bit. Interesting matchup between some talented horses, and there was a time when Caldwell Loves Gold looked like a very good horse, and she still may be. She may just be better going shorter, and we'll see how that works out. Interesting matchup heading to the gate for the Eastview. We all like the 7. We'll see if it's too much weight. Chris Griffin has the call.
Bustin' Time stepping forward. 13 red flags. Rumint. Bernie Takes Charge. Goes in. All set for the Eastview. And they're off. Bernie Takes Charge right out towards the front and also busts in time, and they move quickly early. It's Bernie Takes Charge. Trevor McCarthy has pace pressure here as they are well off the rail. That's Bust in Time, who now puts a neck in front. Back there in third is going to be Sweet Brown Sugar. In tight here at the rail, that's Caldwell Loves Gold, is going to be shuffled all the way to the back end of the field as Rumint is in the clear, is now taken fourth, and that was a quick move there from Manny Franco. Moves Caldwell Loves Gold right through that seam and is now tracking in fifth towards the inside. 13 red flags is now looming up on the outside. The trailer is Solo Shot. 22.48, a pressured opening quarter mile, and Sweet Brown Sugar's got a seam at the rail, and here comes Sweet Brown Sugar. Sweet Brown Sugar has now put a nose in front. Bust in Time is still in there. Same can be said for Bernie Takes Charge, 3 wide. They reach the top of the stretch. A ground-saving journey for Sweet Brown Sugar. Bernie Takes Charge is down the center of the racetrack, but Sweet Brown Sugar is kicked on, is up by a full length. It's Sweet Brown Sugar and Jose Lescano for a final furlong. Bernie Takes Charge is now a clear second. Sweet Brown Sugar trying to hold him off, has a 3-length cushion. Sweet Brown Sugar wins the Eastview. It's Sweet Brown Sugar over Bernie Takes Charge. Late run there, Caldwell Loves Gold, and 13 red flags in 1 minute 10.55 seconds.
May have looked like a 2-horse race on paper, but it was not a 2-horse race on the track, and a terrific ride by Jose Lescano. A Sweet Brown Sugar, that's 2 easy wins in a row for trainer Paul Barrow.
And a decisive move by Jose Lescano. He saw the opportunity to move up the fence, and he wasn't going to wait for it to close off or, the hole to disappear. He made that aggressive, bold move, and that's what you have to do as a rider. You live with your decisions in the moment, and you make those quick decisions. As it turns out, Sweet Brown Sugar was just best.
Absolutely best. Could have gone around the field and still would have won the race. Caldwell Loves Gold ran like a horse, probably needed a race. I also think we're looking at a track that has been pretty kind to forwardly placed horses in the races. So maybe making that run not that easy to do, and I think we'll see better from her going forward. Bernie Takes Charge was simply second best in this race, but best, and no doubt about it, was the 6-1 Sweet Brown Sugar, adding a little bit of spice to this late pick 5 to pick 6 as well. We'll see how those payoffs look as we get closer to the race, but no doubt about it with this one.
No, and you know, once again, Jose Lezcano shows why he's always one of the top riders at any meeting he competes at, because he's consistent and he shows up and he gives you a good ride day in, day out.
If somebody said, you know, who is the best rider that nobody ever talks about in the game, to me it would be Jose Lezcano, because I think he is as good a rider as is in the game, and you just don't hear his name as much in the bigger races, but Jose is a fabulous rider.
I'm with you, and it's hard to understand, because sometimes when he's had an opportunity to deputize on some high-profile horses, he delivers terrific rides.
No question about it, absolutely. Rode Wise Dan a number of times. More to come on America's Day at the Races. A little bit more at Aqueduct, a lot more at Oaklawn Park. We'll be back. Welcome back to America's Day at the Races, brought to you in part by Naira Bets. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Bet through Naira Bets. Heading to the winner's circle for today's Eastview Stakes. It's mild upset by the number 2, Sweet Brown Sugar. And today's winner's circle lead-in brought to you by Fasig-Tipton's industry-leading selected yearling sales. The July sale, the Saratoga sale, and New York-bred yearling sales all taking place this summer. Nominate your yearlings today at FasigTipton.com. There's the number 2, Sweet Brown Sugar, $14 even. Good luck if you're alive in any multi-race bets with Sweet Brown Sugar, and congrats if you had this horse on top. Nice to see Jose Lezcano get the win, and he gave this horse a perfect ride. I don't think she even needed it, though, Richie.
No, she was very good, so we're not trying to undersell her effort, because it was a dominant effort. She was best. But when everything comes together, right? Horse is trained up to the race properly. Paul Barrow does a tremendous job of winning races for as long as I can remember. Jose Lezcano every day shows up and gives you that consistent good ride. And it all comes together. And that decisive move around the far turn. Andy, I don't mind if a rider makes a mistake, as long as it's their mistake. They're aggressive. I don't like when riders are passive and are allowed terms to be dictated to them. Jose Lezcano is never letting other people dictate terms to him. He rides aggressively and he makes decisions.
No, and it was evident in today's Eastview, and a nice win for Sweet Brown Sugar. Maggie's in the paddock, standing by with the trainer of Sweet Brown Sugar, Paul Barrow.
I'm going to have to handcuff him to. So you can't mess up any worse than I did right there. So, you know, the bar's low, Paul. Said he didn't want to do this interview.
You always set the bar high.
Well, I appreciate that. But what a job here with Sweet Brown Sugar. She had such an auspicious start to her career at Finger Lakes. Lost her way in her first 2 starts here at Naira, but boy, has she rebounded.
Yeah, at Finger Lakes, she was, she stood over those horses, but she had outside posts and never got the dirt in her face and the schooling and stuff like that. So down here, she got the 1 hole in the stake and she got dirty. And then the second race, she got dirty, but she improved and ran through it. And this race, I thought Jose did a remarkable job keeping her clean down on the rail. And I was very happy with the effort, and the horse is just sweet.
That's not... Very aptly named. Just a tremendous job by Jose Lezcano, and kind of watching him develop and learn how to ride her has been pretty fun, because it feels like in his last 2 starts he's really kind of gotten her position and she's responded beautifully. Yeah,
I think Jose's a good rider for a horse like that, because he's just not a slasher. He's a finesse guy. He can finish with the best of them, but he's a finesse guy, and he will teach you and tell you something about horses, and I think he was the right fit for this filly for sure.
Paul, your horses always look tremendous. She looks spectacular today. Talk a little bit about just kind of you as a trainer and coming here in the winter and going back to Finger Lakes. Is there ever, any thought, will you keep running her on the Naira circuit throughout the spring and summer?
Yeah, we're going to give her a little break. She's run quite often, and I ran her back in 14 days this time. So we're going to give her a little break before the next race, regroup a little, talk to the owner, and yeah, she'll be back, I hope.
Well, enjoy this Eastview win. Quite an impressive one. Congrats.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, my friend Paul Barrow. See, he handled that beautifully, guys. I think he gets an A+ for that interview.
I think he carried Maggie, actually. I don't know about you, Richie. I think it was all him. And, it's nice. One of the things that's nice in the show is to get a chance to meet somebody like Barbero, who is one of the trainers that comes here in the winter when Finger Lakes is closed. And every year he has winners, and he's obviously a very, very good trainer. And I like getting a chance to see the people behind the scenes you often don't get to see.
Absolutely. And one thing that should not go overlooked is how many good horse trainers have come out of Finger Lakes over the years, going back to Stan Huff starting his career there, and obviously Dave Donk and Jimmy Bond and Charlie Baker, the Engleharts. I mean, they learn how to really handle horses and take care of lower level horses and get them good, because they're racing to put food on the table, not to make headlines. Their horsemanship is incredible, and when they're given a chance with better horses, those are the results.
And you and I are both old enough to remember when Les Hewlett won the Whitney.
Fiorito.
Fiorito, the New York bred, who was 10-1, and I believe broke through the gate before the start and still won the Whitney.
I was an apprentice. I got done the race before. I was watching it by the end of the clubhouse, and he broke through the gate. And, of course, I was interested because he was a New York bred, great big gray horse. Reloaded him, and he held off, I believe, Winter's Tale, amongst others.
Yeah. That was the only Whitney that I haven't been at live since starting with Ancient Title in 1975.
Wow.
I actually was in my freshman year in college, I went to a party in New Jersey. I don't know what.
Man, you get your priorities straight.
Oh, believe me, I got them together, and here I am. So everything seemed to have worked out just fine over time, and a nice view of the bay as the field for race number 8. It's not an easy one. I took an easy way out here. I just tossed everybody that ran the 8th race on February 19th and came up with a couple of other players in this race. We'll see if they're players. Race number 8 is scratched down. Still 8 horses. Looking forward to that race and more action from Oaklawn Park as America's Day at the Races will continue.
Nothing stood in his way. War of Will won the Preakness.
At the line. War of Will, that's a photo for the win. Hey, 650,000.
War of Will, standing at Claiborne Farm.
It's America's original sport, and no one covers it better than America'sBestRacing.net. From the sport to the lifestyle, the best races, horses, and destination venues, cocktails, gambling, fashion, and more. America'sBestRacing.net is a sport for you.
He's a running son of a gun.
Papa Cap now has the advantage.
A graded stakes winning 2-year-old. Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile runner-up at 2. Multiple Grade 1 placings at 3. Finished in the top 4 in 11 out of 12 starts.
And from here on in, it's just a matter of how far. Papa Cap, an easy winner of the best pal.
Papa Cap, standing at Walmack.
Racetrack Television Network brings you every race, from every track, on every screen, every day. With monthly packages starting as low as $5, RTN gives you great value and access to more live HD streaming and race replays than anyone. Visit RTN.tv today to sign up and watch on almost any device, including Roku and Amazon Fire. RTN has packages that start at $5 per month.
If you walk around the Oaklawn backstretch, you'll notice that the barns don't have numbers. The barns instead are named in honor of horses significant to Oaklawn's rich history.
Here come two champions, side by side. Heavily prized to the outside and Pansiana right there.
And Senora flies to the lead in the middle of the track. And it's Smarty Jones, one step forward to Kentucky, and one giant step to $5 million.
It's time to make some memories.
American Pharaoh, breathtaking in a mesmerizing performance.
The Oaklawn handicap and #1 rating will go to Cigar by 2.5.
The champion is Zeri. Here she comes down the middle, and she does it.
40 barns named after 40 important horses, all who helped to contribute to Oaklawn's rich history in their own way.
Curlin is going to decimate this field, winning the Arkansas Derby by 9 lengths.
It's time to make some memories.
So many racing greats with compelling storylines and ties to Oaklawn.
Whitmore win time, Whitmore!
Oh, welcome back to America's Day at the Races. Race number 7 at Oaklawn Park. Another pretty wide open race with a number 3, Perfect Flight, is the current favorite at 5-2. Let's get more from our man in the ground, Paul Aduca.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Another really tough race. We have 3 races on the race card left, so you got a late pick 3 that you can get to. And there's a Frank Fletcher runner in the last race for Brad Cox. I think it's going to be very tough. First-time starter that's been a talk around the racetrack. So maybe you want to center that horse maybe to your pick 3s, because I think you can maybe get a little bit of a price. I know this is only a 9-horse field, but, you know, there's certain ways you want to go. I do think the 3-horse is the one to beat, and there he is on the screen. You know, the blinkers go on. Robertina Diodoro, monstrous off the claim. He drops out of the Peter Miller barn. This horse raced 2 races back, wins this race, and I can understand why 2-1. Matt Shearer was just right in front of me. He thought his 4 was going to maybe outrun his odds, but might need a race. The 5 home run trick is the interesting horse in here because he's really good on numbers, but is he going to have to deal with the 1 early in this race? Icarus is taking a lot of money here for Icarus, I guess. I don't know how you pronounce that. I'm just staying away. But this one for Steve Asmussen is taking money in here, and we're going to go all the way to the outside horse, the 10. The 10 in here has been a closing sprinter and actually has the best numbers in this race if you're looking at, you know, Thoroughgraphs, which I go by. And, you know, St. Andrews in here, I just asked Greg Compton. He was walking by, and I said, Greg, you know, have you been won this horse? He goes, Paulie, I've actually tried to enter this horse in 2 mile and a 16th races, 2 races back and couldn't, and he was ready to run, so I had to run him 6 furlongs. And he does have a win going a mile. I don't love betting horses that usually get left in the gate like the 10 does. he is a big drink of water by Quality Road. So I can understand why the gate is an issue. But knowing that Greg's wanting this horse to go long the last 2 times and he just hasn't had the race written for him, I think the 10 has a shot here at 6-1 because I do think there'll be some pace. Although I think the 3 is going to be tough to beat. So I'm 3-10 or 10-3, just hoping that the 1 can put some pressure on the 5 in here, Andy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, and I agree with Paulie. The 5, I wonder if the horse in the far outside could have been paced, but that horse is scratched, and I think it changes the game a little bit, because if the 1, as Paulie said, isn't able to put that pressure on the 5, home run trick could be the controlling speed in this race and be very tough. But the 3, Perfect Flight, off the claim for Robertino Diodoro. I'll tell you something, claiming from Peter Miller, and this horse was claimed from Peter Miller, not an easy thing to do. The ROI of horses off of claim from Peter Miller in dirt races is very low.
Yeah, and his 1 start at Oaklawn certainly left a lot to be desired. Even he was in a good spot, and he just kind of caved in. 2 starts. I mean, his last start at Oaklawn, I should say. But, you know, when we talk about horses changing hands, and if they improve, it's not an indictment of the former connections. Sometimes just a little bit of a difference in the way they're trained or the approach to things or a feeding program. Horses respond differently to different things. And, you know, just because a guy does have success off of somebody, it's not a knock on the former connection.
No, in fact, a lot of times the best success you can have is claiming from good trainers. You used to see a lot of horses will get claimed from low-profile connections. You'll say, oh, this guy's going to move this guy or gal is going to move this horse way up. Tough to move up sometimes in those trainers.
Well, absolutely. You know, every single horse in their barn is extremely important. And when they're coming out of a good barn, you know they've had good care the entire time they've been in that barn.
No question about it. Let's get more on the maidens in today's 8th race from Maggie.
Andy, going to check in with a horse that I know you like in here, and I'm sure you'll tell people why, as she was against the track in her debut, as she makes her 2nd start here today for Paddock. That's at number 8, Jen's Kiss. Well, I wasn't in the paddock for the January 18th effort, but I do like what I'm seeing here. She takes another little step down in class from the maiden 40 to this maiden 25. She's still acting a little bit green. They've had to make up the saddle, which means that the valet puts everything together. So you don't put, you know, a chamois, the pad, the saddle towel, everything just goes on at once. Do the girth, you know, it's kind of a quick thing, so the horse doesn't have too much time to think about being naughty. Blinkers do go on a significant cup as well, and it's not like she was completely devoid of speed, so we'll see. Does it give her a little bit more forward position out of the gate? But physically, she looks fantastic here. She looks fit, great coat to her. You know, the outside 3 fillies probably do look best here, including the horse who has been toying with favoritism in number 9, Zen Lu. But I really like what I'm seeing from Jen's Kiss, as we'll take a look at a horse who is flip-flopping back and forth with favoritism, and that's number 5, Necessary and Proper, where I think that racetrack on February 19th, a little tilted to speed, as Snarky was able to hold on, but she's a Rick Dutcher horse that I can't recommend. She's nervous, she's washed out, she doesn't look great in her coat, and it's not to say she isn't typically like this, but how can I endorse a horse who behaves like this, Andy? So that's the one at a short price that I'll be more than happy to stay away from.
And the other thing, Maggie, and thank you for that, is that Necessary and Proper has had her fair share of chances. And I agree with Maggie that the last track was a little bit tilted towards speed. But if you're taking horses out of that race, like Necessary and Proper at 5-2, or Zen Lu at 5-2 or 2-1, you should take a look at the PPs of Snarky coming into this race. And she was against the tracker prior start, but this race got a very generous 30 buyer.
Yeah, and I remember this race clearly. I was in the paddock this day, and I actually picked Miss Bourbon, the Tom Morley trainee, who was taking the drop-in class. And my impression coming out of this race was I just didn't want anybody out of this race. It just looked like a very hungry, lean kind of race.
And I throw an umbrella over them. And, you know, if you take out the first-time starters, the 4 and 6 in this race, it kind of leaves you with the 1, 2, and the 8. And I'm interested in the 8 and 1 in this race. And the 8 was wide against a gold rail. And horses that were wide on January 18th ran abysmally and often have come back, including a winner yesterday, and ran much better. Horses are heading the track for race 7. They're going to the gate. I did not have a strong opinion in this race, Richie. I thought it was wide open.
Yeah, I did too. As we see a lot of these races at Oaklawn, and you talked about it. Paul has just had such a good handle on the Oaklawn racing. He's been so immersed in it, but I find it to be very difficult to handicap.
There are
races.
a lot of bigger fields that are wide open, where you're seeing a lot of horses running similar figs, and I think Paulie's done a remarkable job of sifting through these races throughout the meet and coming up with more than his share of winners. It is not easy. Oaklawn, and you talk to anybody that plays Oaklawn, they'll tell you you get the opportunities, but in those opportunities, you also get a lot of opportunities to look very foolish if you're doing public handicapping.
Sure.
And Paulie's done a great job throughout the meet and not looking particularly foolish. Matt Dinnerman with the call.
And Leroff, pretty good dispatch. Home Run Trick, the gray horse, out alertly, showing his customary front-running speed. Chapelbarn on the inside moves level with him. Perfect flight between horses, eases off the speed. Stormy Pattern in the 4th position, charging into the turn. Search Engine racing in the 5th spot with Lycan and a 3-deep Motown Music, a length 2 Icarus, and that leaves St. Andrews to trail the field. He's kept on the outside, and he's running 10 lengths off the lead. Approaching the backstretch run, Chapelbarn from the inside. Offensive-minded strides a length and a half in front. Home Run Trick takes the 2nd spot. He's in a good gallop now, and so is Perfect Flight right behind him in 3rd with Stormy Pattern. A gap of 2 to a line of runners. Motown Music, who's 3 wide. Lycan between horses. Search Engine down at the rail, and a length and a half to Icarus. St. Andrews draws level with him. Now there's just 7 lengths from first to last as they're halfway home. 23-1 the first quarter, the half 47-3. So pretty decent tempo as they approach the 4-turn run. There goes Perfect Flight between horses to challenge Chapelbarn and Home Run Trick, who's 3 wide. These 3 across the track around the 4-turn, and being eased up out of it is Stormy Pattern. Stormy Pattern pulled up out of the race. Search Engine in the 4th position within 3 lengths of the lead. Motown Music feels the stick, but he's sent along gaining ground, and so is St. Andrews as they come to the top of the lane. Home Run Trick has the lead. Perfect Flight struggling on the outside. St. Andrews, Motown Music, they're moving as a pair, and they're moving quickly. St. Andrews on the outside has a narrow lead. On the inside, Motown Music. 2nd, St. Andrews. Francisco Arrieta shaking clear, and St. Andrews wins. St. Andrews over Motown Music. 3rd home was Lycan, and 4th was Search Engine.
The old 10-9, the 2 outside posts getting it done as we did see that competitive pace. We get to the post parade for race number 8 at Aqueduct, the 1 Lady Lawrence, Trevor McCarthy for Mike Progno.
Her first race was good enough to be very competitive here. Don't know what happened in the mud, but adds blinkers.
2 is Dactyl. Maggie and I were trying to figure out how to pronounce this. Dactylographa, I believe, is number 2 in this race. Jose Jimenez, Eric Hansel with them out.
That's why I'm so glad you're hosting, and I'll go with the 2 horse here. Has had chances.
Always the safest bet. The number 4, Stony Lonesome, a firster, Rachel Sells and Sammy Camacho.
By Bustin' Stones, gets an honest runner. How about Stony Lonesome? Was a horse trained years ago by Sidney Waters.
Wow. Who trained Quick Call.
Yeah.
Number 5, Necessary and Proper, coming up next. Rick Dutro's trained this one with Romero Mirage.
Again, a horse that comes out of a race that I just came away with an impression of I would not pick anybody out of it. I'm not saying it can't win. I just thought the race was a bit hungry.
Understandable. The number 6, Night Trail, a firster. Phil Serpy looking for his 2nd win for these connections. Wellspring Stable.
Yeah, and this is a horse with a steady, if not a fast work tab, but a steady work tab.
And the number 7, Miss Bourbon, Tom Worley and Dylan Davis.
Well, I picked her last time. Comes out of that same race that we talked about.
Me too. I can't pick her again. The 8, Jen's Kiss, my selection here. Pat Quick and Lane Luzzy.
Well, taking a bit of a drop in class and making a nice impression galloping off there, adding blinkers.
Rounding out the field, the favorite Zen Lou, Ralph D'Alessandro looking for another win. This one with Manny Franco.
Again, another one coming out of that common race on February 19th that I'm just going to shy away from and try to find someone else, whether it's a firster or not. I like the 1 horse Lady Lawrence. I thought the first race was good enough to point this horse out. I'll
Caught the Muddy Seal track last time.
Yeah, I'll excuse that race and adds blinkers.
I agree. I think she's interesting as well. Night Trail, we mentioned the Phil Serpy first-time star for Wellspring Stable. I thought the day got off to a really cool note when Leave No Trace, who was the 2022 Spinaway winner and 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and she has struggled mightily to say the least, but she finally got back to sprinting on the dirt. Though she had run well going long, to be fair, as a 2-year-old, but she got the victory in the first race. I thought that was a really nice moment because I'm a fan of this horse. horse, and I'd love to see her find some of that form she once had as a Grade 1 winner.
A horse that did show that kind of ability. And just interesting, too, I had conversations with Alan Jerkins many years ago. He said how many good 2-year-old fillies lost their form at 3, and then a lot of times they'd be packed off to be retired because they had already been graded stakes placed or winners, and they would come back at 4 if they gave them a chance.
Yeah, well, we'll see if she can go on with it. Let's get more from Maggie.
That's really interesting, and it is fun, and it was fun to watch Leave No Trace get the win in the opener today. I do think both the first-time starters that we see in this field will need starts, so I'm just going to clump them together and say I'll take the wait-and-see approach, both of which looking just a little soft, just a little green, as number 7 in here, Miss Bourbon, is a great example of the statement, you can't buy heart. You can buy a beautiful filly, you can buy a filly or any horse that, passes the vet exams of flying colors. That works beautifully. That works beautifully in the mornings. And then they just don't show up in the afternoon, and that is exactly what Miss Bourbon is. She looks exceptional. Again, I mean, in the paddock, out on the racetrack, if I didn't know her, I would pick her. But I know that her, to quote my husband, he said, she has the heart of a frozen pea, which is quite clear given her form. Number 1, and it does intrigue me, and that's Lady Lawrence, as you guys were mentioning, gets back on the fast track today, is very energetic, very sharp with those shortcut cheater blinkers going on today. Looks incredibly fit. Don't have any prior notes on her, so I'm just kind of observing her for the first time, but look for her to be, I would think, more involved. She'll have to do it from the inside, but she makes a good impression. Andy, I'm sorry. The 8, Jen's Kiss, just looks too good for me to pass up here. So at 7-1, I'm giving her the tip of my hat.
I'm just warning you on this, Maggie. You like the number 2 Dagographia, who's 20-1. So I don't want to hear any whining after the race if she wins at 20-1. You say, I really like that horse. Don't blame me for this move. Jumping off at 20-1.
I wish she looked better. Andy, I've had this problem all day where the horses I pick, I don't like in the paddock, so
all right.
I couldn't give up
all
Jen's
right.
Kiss. I know. But
I threw your horse in the exact on your
later.
say-so, though. All right, we'll see what happens as they're heading to the gate, and thanks so much, Maggie, for the last race. Richie, you like the 1, the Lady Lawrence, who I think is dangerous as well.
I liked her first race. I thought it was actually a really decent effort.
Relative to these, it's good enough, right?
And it certainly is good enough to be. I'll forgive the race on a muddy sealed track last time. Gets the blinkers today. I just thought this horse was interesting.
And Trevor's not going to be leaving the rail after the last race where Jose Lozcano came up the rail, because you have to wonder if maybe the rail's been a good place to be the way that horse ran. On the other hand, maybe that horse, Sweet Brown Sugar, is just that good.
Yeah, listen, she might have just been improving. It was interesting to listen to Paul Barrow talk about how she had never faced kickback before in a couple races she did. It took her a few races to figure it out.
And she was also on a dead rail 2 races back, something that became apparent much later as horses were running back, because that was a day, February 9th, I believe, where the rail was gold for the first 2 or 3 races, and then the track changed. And it was tough to pick up on, and she was on a dead rail as the field is heading into the gate for race number 8, which will conclude the action at Aqueduct. But stick around. We're going to be covering the races from Oaklawn until 6 o'clock Eastern time tonight. They're heading to the gate. Chris Griffin, he's got one more race to call. Let's get it.
Jen's Kiss goes in. Stony Lonesome. Necessary and Proper, and Zenlu. Goes in. All set. And they're off. very slow start for Stony Lonesome, is already 3 lengths the trailer. Speed from Zen Lu from the far outside draw, and Zen Lu right out towards the front. There's Necessary and Proper. In between horses now, puts a neck in front. Tightly at the rail there is Lady Lawrence in that early mix, and joining them, here comes Miss Bourbon. It's going to be Necessary and Proper who's in front. Ranging up on the outside here into the 2-path, that's Miss Bourbon. 3 wide is Zen Lu. Just off the tempo is Lady Lawrence. Drifting out there is Jen's Kiss, is in 5th with some momentum far back to the rest. About 8-9 lengths back there too. Stony Lonesome and the trailer, Dactylografa, 22-4 for the opening quarter mile, and they're chasing Miss Bourbon. Miss Bourbon's doing it nicely so far for Dylan Davis, is up by a length and a half. Miss Bourbon approaches the top of the stretch and is 2 lengths in front. Necessary and Proper is all in, continues to chase this leader. Zen Lu is there in 3rd. The rest with some running to do, but Miss Bourbon hugs the rail and kicks away. It's Miss Bourbon finding plenty in the late stages, approaching the final furlong. Miss Bourbon has a 3-length cushion. Zen Lu is going to try one final time. Miss Bourbon, Zen Lu, down to these 2 inside the final 16th. Miss Bourbon, Zen Lu getting closer. Miss Bourbon finding the wire. Miss Bourbon wins the finale. Miss Bourbon over Zen Lu, Necessary and Proper, and Lady Lawrence in 1 minute 12-1.
Well, I threw the horses out from the 8th at February 19th. They ran 1, 2, 3, Richie, and a long way back to the others. But it was the horse you and I liked last time, Miss Bourbon. Tom Morley, a little unlucky earlier today, gets the job done to close it out with Dylan Davis.
I felt the same way you did, Andy. I just did not particularly care for that race. This race was strung out from here to Sheepshead Bay. I mean, they were an 1/8 of a mile from first to last, and this is just a limited group, I think, is the nicest way to put it.
I agree. Listen, I'm going to take chances with the other strangers, with Jen's Kisses and Lady Lawrence every day of the week, but in this case, they were not competitive, and I don't think we'll see too many horses in this race be competitive in races at NYRA going forward. But the good news for some of them is Finger Lakes, I believe, opening in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You've never been there?
Never been there.
Never been. So the Grateful Dead in Rochester.
That surprises me, but you should at some point.
I know.
Check it out.
Maybe I should go with Nausea for the New York Derby on the Monday, or the first Monday at Saratoga next summer.
Yeah, why not? There's no racing, and
soon to be married, Nausea Thompson, the director of the New York Derby.
Congratulations, that's terrific. You know, and horses that have recency, because you get a lot of horses at Finger Lakes when they reopen that just spent the winter on farms, and they'll start the races off at 4.5 furlongs. And when you get horses that have been running and have that fitness level, they have an edge when Finger Lakes opens.
Well, we'll see what happens, and I feel like I need a Bourbon after some of the performances of my horses today. But Miss Bourbon gets it done. Nice ride by Dylan Davis, an aggressive ride by Dylan Davis, getting it done. We're almost wrapping up Aqueduct, but we still got more to go at Oaklawn as America's Day at the Races will continue. Welcome back to America's Day of the Races, brought to you in part by Hillendale at Lapa, where the obscure becomes obvious. And it's on my bucket list, heading over to Lapa. I hear it's absolutely gorgeous there. And there you see Dylan Davis heading the winner's circle as he closes out the week with Miss Bourbon with a win. And we've only got 7 more days, I believe, of racing in the Aqueduct Winter Meet. And Dylan's in front. But Kendrick's not giving up. And when you're Kendrick Carmouche, you were 6 in front with 8 races to go and you got caught, you're never giving up the fight.
No, because you know that it's not over until it's over. And I think Kendrick's about 4 back at this moment. Is that what it is? Yeah, but I believe so. But, listen, they've both been riding in good form. Dylan gets some money here on Miss Bourbon. And Maggie talked about a horse that had his ability, has the body, good-looking filly, but maybe, not as much heart and desire. But she got the kind of trip that helps horses like that. In the clear, on the pace, not having to overcome any kind of adversity.
Yeah, and gets the job done. And a good job by Dylan being aggressive. And you talk about it all the time. You get rewarded for aggression. And closes out a pick 6 that just paid just under $3,000 with mostly fairly logical results. Not that I had too many of them. We're heading over to Oaklawn Park. We've got 2 more races to go there. We've got an interesting allowance in race number 8 going a flat mile. A few scratches in here, though. It's rare to see that many scratches. You don't see scratches that much at Oaklawn Park.
No.
But 4 of the 12 came out. Ben Franklin. He may not be around anymore, but he's out there as an equine, as Ben Franklin, who had a very nice maiden win last time and a fast win, but a horse that he burned some money coming into this race, and I think you have to ask yourself how confident are he can go on and continue with these good efforts. He is the horse to beat, though.
Yeah, I mean, this horse has really never run a bad race. I guess the second race was the only one, and he didn't break particularly well that day, but he does have to overcome a little bit of an outside draw. The 4 scratch inside of make it a lot easier.
But I'll tell you something, Richie. There were 4 horses that were forward in here, at least according to the time form pace projector, which plays out very well at Oaklawn. The 1, 5, 8, and 12. Well, the 1 and 5 are out, and the 1, the principal speed. And so now you've got a situation where horses like the 8 and 12, big prices or not, they may have an easier pace. And it does feel like Ben Franklin, if he has an Achilles heel, it could be if the pace is too slow.
I think
he's the horse to beat. I'm not knocking him. But
no, I think that's fair. I think, don't you think the 8 Spitesville is the one that winds up making the lead now? Or do you think the outside horse could
I think I think it'll really come down to which horse gets the more aggressive ride in here. And I agree with you. I think Spitesville probably is the speed stretching out in here. Now, it helps that neither one of them look like particularly logical horses, which lends the pace collapsing. But I guess the question becomes, who is the best horse of the horses that will be more forward? Is it a horse like the 7, Megan's Honor? Is, a horse who does have some fast back races?
Yeah, were you interested at all in the 10 order of magnitude who, had that race, in the slot, but maybe a race he can move up off of?
Originally was a Klarovich runner for Chad Brown. And I think if you look at this horse, he's sort of come into his own, and then he caught a sloppy seal track last time out. And I think he is dangerous as an alternative in here. And he's the he's actually the 4th choice right now. A lot of money coming in for the number 3, Ben Diesel, who did run well last time, albeit on a wet track.
Yeah, but another one that could be pace compromised.
I agree. It's up to Chris Landeros to get some position down towards the inside because he inherits the rail. And this is a race that just, I looked at it when we drew it last Monday. It has changed dramatically because not only are there 4 scratches, but there are 4 of the inside 6, and they move everybody in quite a bit.
Yeah.
Post becomes a lot less relevant than it can be with that 2-turn mile hitting the turn so quickly.
Maybe I tend to make too much of outside posts and 2-turn races because the last race, the 2 outside runners ran 1-2.
Yeah, but I don't think you do, Richie. I think you got to get the right position, and it can, especially if there's horses inside that can prevent you from getting the lead if you're forward, and it just makes getting position so much easier by having those inside posts. You fall into it.
I just always being in that outside chase mode when I was a rider. I just felt like it was a hard trip on a horse to be caught 3-4 wide chasing the pace.
Want to let people know we will be leaving Fox Sports 2, FS2 now, but we'll be heading over to FS1. So come join us at FS1 as America's Day at the Races will continue on a slightly different network. welcome to America's Day at the Races. The racing has concluded at the Big A. A beautiful day here as spring really feels like it's in the air. Richard Migliori joining me, Andy Serling, on the set here at the Big A. Our good friend Paul LaDuca covering all the action at Oaklawn Park, as we've still got 2 races to go at Oaklawn. An interesting allowance with a founding father, actually, as the heavy favorite in here, and some good-looking maidens with some first-time stars to talk about in race number 9. A couple of nice races and a couple of big purses down in Hot Springs.
Yeah, they certainly put up the purse. $140,000 allowance race. Andy, do you remember when a $100,000 race was a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, when I started on the track, the Whitney was $75,000 or $50,000. Things have changed. Head on over to NyraBets.com. If you're not a member, no better time than the present. Join NyraBets. Use the promo code BONUS200. We will match the $200 of your initial deposit. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Join NyraBets.com to earn your $200 a deposit match bonus. As I said, the action closing out at Aqueduct. You see those tarps are still on the turf. We are almost exactly a month away from turf racing being at Aqueduct. A little later this year, Richie, because, you know, in the past we've run for 3 weeks at Aqueduct before coming back in November. We're going to be running on those courses for 3 months before Saratoga and a good 3 months after. So we want to give it a little extra time to grow in. But we'll be on the turf sooner than later.
Yeah, and of course, you know, you've got to be thoughtful about it and manage it, because we're going to spend much more time here at Aqueduct than normal, and you don't want to lose your courses halfway through our time here.
Especially give them a little time to grow in before you start running on them. We're looking at the horse in the paddock for the 8th at Oaklawn Park. But big races coming up next weekend, particularly at the fairgrounds, where their Louisiana Derby at the Preakness distance of 1 mile and 3/16. The first of the 100-point Derby preps begin. We'll talk about that race and more when America's Day at the Races continues.
Good Magic is off to a meteoric start at stud, having sired 2 Eclipse Award finalists in first crop Kentucky Derby champion Mage and second crop Grade 1 winning 2-year-old Muth. With just 2 crops to race, Good Magic ranked 21st on the general sire list with nearly $10 million in progeny earnings. Mage's graded stakes winning full brother Dornoch is one of the leading contenders for this year's Kentucky Derby. Good Magic, the classic sire.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with NyraBets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with NyraBets.
The sun shines bright on Caraconte. His first crops of racing age are showing brilliance on the racetrack with a high percentage of stakes winners. His versatility is evidenced by winners on all surfaces across the globe.
Spandarella could not have been more impressive.
The sun shines bright on this value sire.
Fair down 25, fair down 25, fair down. Thank you. Right here, 525,000.
Caraconte, standing at Gainesway.
Welcome back to America's Day at the Races on a glorious Sunday, closing out the week, and some great racing coming up. And I don't know about you, Richie, I'm really rooting for this race and all of these final Derby 100-point preps to be run in nice weather. They had such miserable weather for the Risen Star, and I'm looking forward to seeing these horses, see what they can do on a dry track. As Track Phantom, very good second to one of the Derby favorites, Sierra Leone, and Catching Freedom, who ran well to be third. They will team up again in this race.
Yeah, and listen, Track Phantom has seasoning, right? He's already run 6 times. This was a nice effort. He got run down by a major contender in the Kentucky Derby, Sierra Leone, and this was a good effort. He didn't quite see it out, but he got beat by a very good horse, although there were a lot of horses in the frame late.
You know, one thing I'll say, and I think he ran well in here, and he's a good horse, one thing I don't love about him, and I don't mean this as a knock on him, he has been running the same Beyer speed figures in his last 4 races. You want to see his horses get better, and that worries me a little bit about him. Was he a bit precocious, and he's not a horse that's taking those steps forward.
But you're not going to see that forward move. Right. It's an interesting take on it.
We'll take a look at Common Defense, who was second to one of the Derby favorites in Timberlake last time out. Poor Brian Hernandez, I don't think he could give a better ride. He might even be able to give as good a ride as he gave this horse last time, because this was brilliance.
And we see this consistently from Brian Hernandez. He just quietly, day in, day out, delivers these flawless type of rides. He in the Southwest, he won with Mystic Dan with a perfect ride. He gets the mount in the Rebel on Common Defense, saves every inch of ground, slips through second best to a very good horse in Timberlake, who I think showed a lot of improvement mentally from 2 to 3, because he didn't get keen when he was in and amongst horses, and that what he had a tendency to do as a 2-year-old.
Is Brian Hernandez the Midwest version of Jose Lezcano, a great rider who always rides well, and you just never hear his name in the discussion with the top riders, and he rides as well as anyone?
And he does, consistently. And he's a guy who won a Breeders' Cup Classic, too, Fort Larned. So, he's a top rider that just is quiet, unassuming, and just does his job. And I have to tell you, there's a video out there of his son winning a pony race, and he slips through, he cuts the corner, saves ground on the other kids. A lot like his dad.
Were you a little jealous being a veteran of the pony races?
Oh, my God. There's nothing better than seeing kids race ponies. It's the best.
Let's take a look at the horses for race number 8 at Oaklawn Park as they head onto the track. And the favorite, he's a founding father, and he's down in Hot Springs right now, and that's Ben Franklin. And I think one of the possible problems for him is with the scratch in here, it's taken a bit of the speed out of the race, and that could hurt him. But the number 3, Ben Diesel, he'll be a little bit more forward. Manny Esquivel riding for Eddie Milligan.
Yeah, and this is a horse that has the inside draw, so he's going to get to save ground even if he's lurking just off the pace.
Chris Landeros riding the number 4, Mr. Thunderstruck for Kelly Von Hemel.
Yeah, stretching back out after sprinting. Maybe that makes him a little sharper.
Megan's Honor in this race, a horse who can be forward, Scott Becker and Francisco Arrieta. The number 8 is Spitesville, who looks like the speed. Louis Quinones.
Yeah, I think Spitesville plays out to be the speed in here, and he's another horse coming off of that sprint.
Inexorable goes out for Steve Asmussen with his son Keith Asmussen riding.
Yeah, they haven't won, at least since we started the show, and it's unusual for them to go a whole day without a winner.
And I think a horse who's a danger to possibly upset here is Order of Magnitude, Robertino Diodoro and Harry Hernandez.
This is who I liked. I thought he was going to get the right kind of trip. I think he'll be forward enough.
But Ben Franklin on his good race could be too much for these Ken McPeak and Julien Leparoux.
Is it fair to say Ben Franklin's honest?
Does he have a kite, is what I want to know. A long shot with some speed. Caballo Files for Cipriano Contreras off the claim, and he's having a sensational meet.
And you get an apprentice, Carlos Barbosa. This horse does have some speed, and sometimes apprentices simplify things, and they allow horses to roll along.
Another man who helps simplify things for us the entire meet is Paul LaDuca, and let's get more in the 8th race from him.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. You guys hit the nail on the head. The 1, 2, 5, and 6 being scratched out of this race just, kind of just muddied up who's going to be the pace setter in here, and it's going to be the 8. I mean, there's just no doubt. But, this is a horse that's 30 to 1 on the morning line, and can this horse really, carry this field all the way around the racetrack? He's 2 for 12 lifetime. So you want to look maybe for somebody that's sitting in that garden spot. The 3 in here, when I looked at Ben Diesel, he's been off a little bit of a layoff. Willis Horton transferred all of his horses from Dallas Stewart to Dwayne Lucas, and now they're all with Eddie Milligan Jr. And, this horse did run well on January 6th. I just don't know at 3 to 1. When you get to the outside horse, you were talking about Mr. Ben Franklin, the horse to beat. I mean, a good effort last time out, and this horse had run some really good races, and a lot of people thought, okay, maybe this is, a horse that's got a little bit of second eyes, but he'd been running against some good runners, finally got the job done, gelding by City of Light. But, you know, facing winners for the first time is always tough. And at 3-2, I just can't go there. And I'm in agreement with both of you guys. Now, I like the 9 just a tiny bit more than the 10. But I think the 10 is a player here and the 9. My thing on the 9 is this is a horse that has some back numbers that are great. I actually talked to Steve Asmussen right before the race. Eric Asmussen had ridden this horse at Sam Houston 3 times. He's already got 20 wins on his resume so far as a 5-pound apprentice. And now this horse came to Oaklawn, had not a favorable trip last time. I just hope he's not too far behind the 8 ball. And I think he's got a big shot along with the 10. I just think at 8-5, Ben Franklin is a dicey, proposition. First time against winners, and first time against horses that have won, you know, like the 9's won 5 out of 16 races. So I'll go with the 9-2 shot with more experience.
I saw what you did there, Paulie. You didn't want to try to pronounce Inexorable. Inexorable, the number 9, is not going to be an announcer's favorite. He does not exactly have a name that rolls off your tongue, Richie.
No, and I'm just glad that you had to say it first. I can parrot you.
You know, I'm occasionally able to pronounce them correctly, but I get a lot of them wrong as well. And I agree with a lot of what Paulie's saying. None of us are saying we're going to be shocked if Ben Franklin wins, but he just doesn't feel like the world's greatest gamble at 8-5 in this spot.
No,
especially his lack of speed.
Yeah, and when we've seen it, it's not an easy task to come from way back at Oaklawn, although it feels like today has been okay for closers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. Actually, more often than we often see. I'm going to take the 10 order of magnitude, who I think you kind of like a little bit too, Richie.
Yeah, that's what I like. I think he sits the right trip. I really can see him sitting right in behind probably the 8 and the 12 and getting that first run that seems to work well at Oaklawn.
Well, he's on your $100 bills, and he's about to show up in a little replay of his last race where he got it done. But, you know, look at the horses he beat. The second-place finisher, Mount Craig, is not only 0 for 13, but he's been second and third 9 times. The fourth horse is also 0 for 13 and had his share of chances. Ken McPeak, however, does have okay numbers. He has decent ROI off of maiden wins and dirt routes, but he wins at a low percentage, around 14% overall. So while the ROI is there for an 8-5 shot, those are not a high percentage. On the other hand, he probably doesn't have a ton of 8-5 shots in that sample.
No, but he has been a consistent sort, and Ken McPeak has had a good Oaklawn Park meeting, winning at 20%
Very
there.
good meet. Yeah. Very good meet. And it's tough. I mean, you know, I think there's obviously a great appeal to going to Oaklawn. The purses are extremely generous. But anybody that thinks that going there and grabbing the lion's share of those purses is easy is kidding themselves. It is crazy competitive there.
You have to earn it. Every race is
they're wars.
They're wars.
Daily wars out there. Big fields, highly competitive races. So, yeah, it's inviting to go, but you're going into battle with some tough guys.
Absolutely. And listen, when you put up that kind of money, it's supposed to be tough.
No, I agree. It's similar with Kentucky Downs. They have those big purses sort of in early September. But not only is it a very quirky track, and a lot of horses don't run their races there, but it's war after war after war with big fields. They're not giving anything away. Horses are going into the gate for race number 8.
Full disclosure, I just looked up Inexorable. It means impossible to stop.
This
is how I improve my vocabulary on this show. I look up horses' names and I learn things.
I have a tear in my eye. Let's get the call of race 8 from Matt Ditterman.
We're ready to go. And Laroff, Caballo Feliz broke sharply, broke inwards, is up on the pace. Spitesville quicker, Spitesville to the front. Caballo Feliz takes a hold of the bit, takes the second spot. Ben Diesel third in the early stages. Megan's Honor between horses, a 3-deep order of magnitude with that party into the turn. Then comes Mr. Thunderstruck, Ben Franklin alongside of him, and Inexorable is the early trailer, 9 lengths off the lead. Around the clubhouse turn, and the pacemakers, Spitesville on the rail with Luis Quinones, a length and a half 2.5 in front of Caballo Feliz, who's now moving up in the 2-path to come and press just on the neck of Spitesville, approaching the backstretch run. Megan's Honor on a snug hold between horses. A deep order of magnitude. Ben Diesel easing off that pair to run in 5th, 5 behind. 2 back to Ben Franklin. Inexorable joining Mr. Thunderstruck at the tail end of the field. Now 8 lengths from tip to tail. Spitesville still in the lead. Caballo Feliz keeping the pressure on all the way. Megan's Honor 2.5 behind. Order of magnitude is plummeted towards the back of the field. Absolutely has to turn it around if he wants to win it. Ben Diesel claiming the 4th position. Inexorable is next along with Mr. Thunderstruck. Ben Franklin in order of magnitude are at the back. Ben Franklin's got to get going as they round the far turn. There goes Megan's Honor at a price 10-1. Just blew past Spitesville and Caballo Feliz. Megan's Honor with an eye-catching move and turns for home with a 2-length edge. Now Ben Franklin's getting underway. He was last a moment ago. Now he's second. It's Megan's Honor in front. Here comes Ben Franklin on the outside, powering to the lead, and he's going to win going away. Ben Franklin declaring independence on this field. Ben Franklin by 2.5. Megan's Honor was second. Inexorable was third home, and then Caballo Feliz.
A one-up, Dinnerman. Like lightning to a kite. Ben Franklin sizzling down the stretch.
This was a really nice effort from Ben Franklin. He didn't break particularly well. The 12-horse Caballo Feliz took his path immediately. He dropped out. There was a legitimate pace. I wouldn't say an overly fast pace at all, and he just stormed home. This was a really nice effort.
Yeah, the short stretch didn't matter at all to him. He absolutely blew this field away. You know, you had noted to me, and you were right, Inexorable had a lot of horse going around the turn, but I mean, he could no match for this horse. No. Ben Franklin got in gear and just absolutely blew this field away. Our selection, order of magnitude, he did pretty well for about 3 furlongs.
Well, he got the spot he thought he was going to get, and I said, okay, I'm happy with that position. And then you knew midway down the backstretch he was struggling to keep pace.
Yes, he was, but Ben Franklin had absolutely no problem. And nice to see Julian Leperoux. Last time I saw him, we were in warm and sunny Jamaica. Julian went down.
It had to be a good
big race. It was an incredibly great time and just incredibly great people down there. And listen, you and I have been friends with a lot of the Jamaican community here at Aqueduct in the New York races for a long, long time. And to head down there and see the guys, it really was a great, great experience. It's one of the nice things in racing to travel to places. Been to Oaklawn. You've been to Oaklawn 2 or 3 times this year, twice this year. And it's fun to get a chance to travel around a little bit. And looking forward to getting back to Jamaica as they've upped the purse for their Butte Mile for next year. Yeah, $250,000 US for that race. Good. Looking forward to that. They just had a big press conference actually for that. And Julian, we'll get Julian down there again. He had a good time and he won the race last year, but he's also been having a good meet down at Oaklawn Park, and I'm glad to see it. Speaking of horses having a good meet down at Oaklawn Park, Timberlake, he won the Rebel and he won it decisively. Will things be tougher for him as he tries to stretch out to 1 1/8 miles? Well, he's gearing up for the Arkansas Derby in just a couple of weeks. More to come on America's Day at the Races. Welcome back to America's Day at the Races, brought to you in part by Naira Bets. Apparently, join Naira Bets and get a pizza. As we see him getting pizza, I'm guessing that's DeLucas.
That's DeLucas, and it's certainly a spot that you got to hit up. I think my wife Carmela's meatballs are the best meatballs in the world. I will give DeLucas high marks and a close second.
Their pizza is very, very good as well. I ate there a couple times when I was down in Hot Springs, a very popular spot. And, yeah, big fan of DeLucas. Got a LaDuca, too.
Well, and LaDuca's a big fan of DeLucas, and both trips down there, I hung out with Paul, and we've gone there for dinner and had an amazing time.
Yeah, Frank Miramonti insisted that I go there when I first went down to Oaklawn. Had a good time there as well. As the number 11, Ben Franklin in the winner's circle for the 8th race, and he was a dominating winner, winning like he was an overlay.
Yeah, broke a step slow, got squeezed a little bit right out of the gate by the 12 horse. But, man, when he put it into gear, he made that Arazi-esque kind of move around the far turn where he picked up his horses so easily, and then he was able to continue. He didn't, hang or anything. He was able to make that long, sustained rally.
No, he was very impressive getting it done at 5:20. Looked like an overlay. Megan's Honor ran very well to be second, was sort of the one pace setter, able to hang around for a piece for an exact that paid just under $19 for $1. Well, we still got a lot of big races to come at Oaklawn Park, and they've spread them out more. It used to be when the meet was shorter, they had that big week of racing with the big events, but a lot more to come. And this is an interesting race filled with first-time stars. You know, Paulie mentioned that there's a big story in here on the number 9, Almost Gone Rocket. It was the current 9-5 favorite. And this is a firster for Frank Fletcher Racing and 10 Strike that Brad Cox has. Now, Frank Fletcher involved with 10 Strike here. Now, you think of Frank Fletcher, usually with trainer Bill Mott. A lot of success together. Do want to mention, I looked up some stats for trainer Brad Cox. First time starting, maiden special weight, dirt sprints at Oaklawn. He's 3 for 40. With a 74% ROI over the last 5 years, and he's 2 for 31 with 3-year-olds. So as great a trainer as he is, and as much success he had with firsters, over the years he has not done well with firsters at Oaklawn. But also, now Frank Fletcher runs a lot there. He hasn't had horse for Frank Fletcher, and this may be more the kind that's pointing for this meet.
And this horse has been training at the fairgrounds, and you see a lot of trainers, have split divisions, keeping their horses that are either getting ready to start or on the 3-year-old trail, Derby trail, at fairgrounds, because I think they can count on the weather being more predictable and not having interruptions in their training. This is a daughter, of Into Mischief, who has been training very forwardly in Into Mischief. I mean, it's just incredible what he's done as a stallion.
Remarkable sire. Second foal from the Dam. The Dam herself was okay, but her first foal did little running. A lot to talk about, though, about today's 9th race. But let's take a look at some of the horses for the Arkansas Derby. We're 13 days away, but it's not too early to start talking about these final preps. And Timberlake, he did what he had to do, an easy winner over an overmatched field. Will things get tougher in the Arkansas Derby, Richie, and will it get tougher for Timberlake as the distances stretch out?
Well, the one thing I thought that was extremely encouraging was that he was just more settled than he was as a 2-year-old. Now, what makes him a good horse is how competitive he is. One of the things that makes him a good horse is how competitive he is. But it also could be a horse's undoing when they get too keen when they're around horses. And we saw that from him as a 2-year-old. The fact that he was settled and he waited on his rider's cue, I think bodes well for him to get at least a little more distance. I thought this was a really encouraging effort from a mental standpoint.
And I thought Jean Cruguet coming back and riding, Christian Torres, as he was imitating the Cruguet move on Seattle Slew. Maybe a little early celebrating in there. I mean, I know he was excited, and I get it. He's a young rider, and it's a big, big win for him. But he might have been a little overly enthusiastic, a little early.
I'm not a big fan of that in general. And it's funny because I was in the grandstand at Belmont on the 3rd floor when Seattle Slew went by, and I was right across from Jean Cruguet when he started to stand up to do that. And for a split second, and I didn't know how to watch races as well then. I mean, I'm still learning. I thought he might be falling off for a moment. I got scared, A
lot of us thought he might be falling off for a moment, even though we knew he was doing what he was doing. He did manage to stay on, but could you imagine blowing the Triple Crown because you stood up a little early and fell off?
Well, I think he just had so much confidence in his horse, and he was very
excited.
happy.
It was a great moment,
and honestly,
as it was for Christian.
If you look at Jean Cruguet's career beyond Seattle Slew, he rode a lot of really good horses before him, McDermott, Arts and Letters. I mean, he rode a lot of really good horses.
I'm going to stay out of this conversation because I'm only going to get myself in trouble, but you are absolutely right. He did ride a lot of good horses. But not the only horse coming in off a nice effort at Oaklawn, but Mystic Dan has different questions to answer because Timberlake did it in some big spots. As a 2-year-old winning our Champagne. Mystic Dan ran the fastest figure by any horse in a 3-year-old race this year, not named Nisos, when he got a 101 Beyer blasting the field in their Southwest. On the other hand, he rode a gold rail that day. I want him to get a fast track. I want to see what he can do in a fair, competitive effort because this was a huge performance, bias it or not.
I love the fact that he changed up his style. He was a horse that could be forward sprinting, and they purposely, and I was talking to Ken McPeak the day before the Southwest, that we are changing tactics. We've been working with them. And all good horses share one characteristic. They have speed. It's how they learn to use that speed, how they dole it out. We've seen a lot of fast horses as 2-year-olds, like Crypto Clearance, right? That became deep closers. They just turned it around. So I agree with you. I want to see it on a fast track. But I love the way he finished, and the mechanics of his stride are impeccable.
And he is kind of a horse that's not getting any real conversation. And it's odd, Paul, because we mentioned with the Beyer fig, he's got the only triple-digit Beyer fig heading towards this Derby besides Nisos, who's on the shelf and wouldn't be allowed to run anyway.
Yeah, Andy, I'm with you. And, you know, talking to Ray Briner, the assistant trainer, who's been down here most of the meet, and Kenny's come, obviously, when Mig was just mentioning, talking to him, you know, Kenny and Ray had told me, listen, Mystic Dan is training like a beast, and he had told me common sense as well, common defense, excuse me, but he had said common defense was just behind Mystic Dan when it came to, you know, where he was mentally. You know, you could say what you want about Timberlake, but he floated out a little bit, he grinded away. I don't know if he's still mentally there. I'm kind of in agreement with Mig here that this horse has mentally put it all together. Yes, he has to answer questions whether he can run on a dry racetrack, but I don't understand why he's not in the conversation because it does rain sometimes in the first Saturday in May, and if he gets a wet racetrack the way his stride was striding over that racetrack, he is going to be a handful. And when I talked to Ray and I talked to actually Kenny on the phone, I asked him what was his decision. He said, listen, we wanted common defense to go to Fairgrounds. We wanted Mystic Dan to stay here. And, you know, let's feel the pulse of where common defense is at Fairgrounds, and we'll stay with Mystic Dan here. And, you know, and hopefully that's going to be a winning, you know, combination for him because they still got high praise for common defense. They just don't think he's caught up to Mystic Dan yet. But I'm agreeing with you, Andy. He's in the conversation, but he has to prove himself on a dry racetrack.
And that's why you want to see these races on dry tracks. Now, Fierceness ran a triple-digit Beyer of 105 in the in last year's juvenile. I mean, his 3-year-olds running the triple-digit figures, and obviously Fierceness, enormous questions to answer. I don't think there's a question of whether or not he's capable of being the best 3-year-old. It's a question of whether he's going to duplicate those performances on any kind of consistent basis. But Mystic Dan, you know, this is the time you learn about these horses, and there's no reason he shouldn't be in the conversation.
And one thing you know about Mystic Dan, and again, admittedly, we want to see him do it on a fast track, you know that he's the kind of horse that's going to handle a 20-horse field because he was not afraid to run through traffic, come through tight quarters. It's so much, it's a big help for a rider to have a horse that's brave because a rider can see the spots he wants to go to. It's not always the horse that can either get them there or is reluctant to go there because they're not comfortable in those spots.
Well, the other thing is there's been way too much emphasis, I think, in a lot of ways over the last 10 or more years on winning and keeping horses undefeated or winning streaks. You gain a lot more by losing races sometimes, and there's a reason they call these preps. Of course you want to win them all.
Of course,
You'd
they're
like
big races,
retire undefeated and be a Hall of Famer. But the reality is that many Derby winners did not win their prep races. Congaree easily beat Monarchos here in the Wood Memorial, and they used it as a prep race to get them the right way to the Derby. Fast pace or not, good trip or not, they got them the Derby with the race they wanted. There's nothing wrong with these horses not getting it done if they get something out of the race. A horse that just bounds along on the front end in a relatively slow pace, you didn't learn anything about him. The chances they're going to face that scenario in the Derby are almost nil. You want horses that get battle-hardened, and they run so infrequently now before the Derby. Very few of them go into the Derby battle-hardened.
Well, you like to see a horse have the ability, show the ability to overcome adversity. And they don't always have to win if they get something out of it, just what you're saying. You know, I talk about it often. The same boiling water that makes a potato soft makes an egg hard. It's not always the circumstances, what you're made of.
I'm going to think about that during the commercial. I'm sure there's some there. And speaking of that, Time for Truth. He is kind of an interesting horse heading here for Ron McQuett because he had been very impressive sprinting, and they tried to stretch him out. He was visually impressive winning here, but it was not a particularly fast race, getting a 78 buyer. If he's going to win against good horses going long, he's going to have to get a lot faster. And I wonder if he's a nice horse who's going to be better going shorter going forward.
Well, it'll be interesting. From a pedigree standpoint, distance doesn't seem to be an issue. And obviously he got it done here, but against different kind of horses.
He ran well doing it.
He did. And he's a very handsome son of Omaha Beach. He's out of a Looking at Lucky mare. Looking at Lucky was a Preakness winner, a horse that obviously capable of getting
a lot of distance in his progeny.
Yeah, there's a lot of stamina, based in those pedigrees. And listen, that was his first time stretching out. He has a right. He's only run 3 times to improve and move forward.
Yeah, it'll just be, I think he's talented. It's a question of whether or not his talents ultimately are going to lie in longer races. And pedigrees are funny. Sometimes these horses will fool you. They look like distance horses. They have pedigrees like distance horses, and they're not really that
they're
efficient.
individuals at the end of the day. I mean, your pedigree is only going to take you so far. It's also what you're capable of.
And sometimes I think connections get fooled by pedigrees, and they keep insisting, no, this horse is bred to go long. He looks like a router. But in fact, on the racetrack, they're better going shorter.
Well, and you see that too with the horse. Well, he's got a turf pedigree, but he may be a better horse on the dirt.
Absolutely. And you see that quite often, and we'll see some turf horses trying the dirt, even for the first time in the Louisiana Derby, as we continue on America's Day at the races. But a big day on that Saturday coverage from 1 to 8, live on FS2. We're sending Maggie. Maggie's abandoning us to go, but, the lure of LaDuca, Regime Mirage, and of course our man Lafitte Pinkai there. But we'll be holding down the fort here, Richie. You, me, and Greg.
I'm always happy when I'm at Aqueduct, so I'm fine wherever I am. Being at the racetrack's a good day.
Could not agree more. There's Norm Cassie getting ready to saddle a couple in there. Look, he looks happy now. We'll see if he's happy in about 15 minutes as race number 9 comes up after a quick break.
In the 2023 First Crop Sires Race, Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
General admission tickets are on sale now for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival at Saratoga, June 6th through 9th. Admission is just $10 on Thursday as well as on Sunday for this historic event. Visit BelmontStakes.com/tickets today.
RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing with unique features found nowhere else. True odds, predictive analysis, and pace projection. RaceLens. It will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level.
They're coming down for the finish, and it is Silver State.
$140, 140,000.
Grade 1 winner Silver State, standing at Claiborne Farm.
I grew up resenting horse racing a little bit. My dad and my mother divorced when my brother and I were very young, and I didn't get to see Dad a lot. And when I did go to see Dad during the summers, we'd have to go to the races in the barn all day. And then being a little kid, there was a lot of resentment there. I didn't really have a direction early on in my life. I loved sports. I loved baseball. I actually played a year of college baseball. But I mean, at some point you realize, you're 5'6", you're 5'7", you're slow as hell, you have a terrible arm. You're not going to be a Major League Baseball player. Growing up in Louisville, I fell in love with horse racing on my own.
The unbeaten colt, Smarty Jones, is drawing away to win the Derby.
In the year that Smarty Jones won, I caught the bug really, really bad and decided that's what I wanted to do. I remember the conversation really well because it took a long time to have it. Probably a couple years to tell Dad I knew I wanted to be a trainer. I knew I wanted to follow in his footsteps, but I wasn't brave enough to tell him that yet. I was embarrassed to admit it for whatever reason, and it was an emotional thing to tell him, and I don't know why, because as soon as I did tell him, he's like, well, then let's do it. Let's make you the best that you can possibly be, and we hit the ground running.
But Tepin has a 5-length margin and deep stretch. It is Tepin.
Tepin in front. Tepin, Parado racing it over near the line. Tepin from Babu. Wins for America about the Breeder.
Tepin in front. They have a furlong to run, and she has turned them away. And she is going to make this her own personal playground. Tepin.
I just give credit to Tepin for a lot of things. Tepin is definitely the reason I went on my own because she gave me that confidence. You know, when I left to go on my own, there was no handouts. I got my own clients. At the time, I was a little upset about that, but in hindsight, that was the right thing to do because now everything has been that much more rewarding.
Hard Legacy still going strong. Hard Legacy goes coast to coast.
To win my first graded stake at Churchill Downs, we did it for Mary Lou Whitney while Mary Lou was still with us. And to win a race named after a horse that Mary Lou bred, the Whitney's Bred Regret. You know, it's kind of fairy tale, and it was a good moment.
It is Pretty Birdie, jockey Louis Saez, wearing the colors of the Mary Lou Whitney stables. Pretty Birdie takes the Schuylerville.
Being associated with Mary Lou Whitney and her husband John, who have been so great for the sport and so great for the town of Saratoga, I knew there was a lot of pressure riding on Pretty Birdie and me, and she delivered. I've been a part of a lot of big races, won a lot of big races when I worked for my father, but that was the biggest moment of my life in racing so far. There's two simple goals. I would like to be the guy in Kentucky, you know, at that very top tier at Churchill and Kingland. That would be one of my main goals, but the only goal is to win the Kentucky Derby.
Anything better than seeing Norm Cassie's getting to see that feature, and we always wish Norm a lot of good luck and as well as his wife, who used to work with us, and a good friend of ours, Gabby Gadet, as well. She's got to get back to work at Keeneland. I don't think she was there last year at the fall meet because she was getting ready to have her second child.
That's right. Yeah, they have two now. Nice to see. Budding young racetrack family.
Okay, Lady Moscato is Andy off for Wayne Lucas, second off a layoff with Keith Asmussen. The number 3, the Big Calhouna. Looks a little overmatched, Richie.
Yeah, it's just going to have to find races we haven't seen yet.
Robbie Medina has the 4, Illicit Intention, going out for a second start.
Oh, this horse ran well on debut, broke slow, and actually finished okay.
I agree. Number 5, a firster for Norm Cassie. She Knows, Francisco Arrieta.
The first foal out of an unraced mare, but deep in the Juddmonte pedigree on the female side.
Firster at a big price, the 6, She's It, for Ike Green and John Court.
Yeah, John Court, the ageless wonder. I've been calling him...
The favored firster, the 7, Almost Gone Rocket for Brad Cox.
Yeah, taking money and has a nice work tab coming in. The mare did have one fall that was a winner, but she wasn't
much.
Quality.
This one better be better than that one. Wampus Kitten goes out off the claim from Norm Cassie, actually.
Yeah, moving up in company for running well for maiden 50.
The other firster for Norm Cassie, taking a little more money, a New York bred Dam. Firster for Audible, Ricardo Santana with a mount. The 10, Outwork Mom. The Dam ran for your man, Mike Hushin. Actually, a pretty good one. Sold cheap, huh?
Yeah, actually wound up in California with Dave Hoffman. She has produced 6 foals to race, 5 winners, so she is a producer.
Timber Ghost, I think, the best one. Light Spirit finally shows up almost a year after being sold, and worked very, very impressively the 2-year-old sale and sold for big money.
Yeah, interesting. This horse is working at Louisiana Downs, and now Kane's last 2 works at Oaklawn Park. I keep on making that mistake. Daughter of Spicetown, making a nice impression on the racetrack.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Not taking a lot of money now. Let's hear from Paul LaDuca.
Yeah, this is a good-looking group of fillies here for maiden special weight here. And, you know, the 7 in here is your favorite for Brad Cox and Axel Concepcion in the ride. And he's looking for, he's rode 2 horses for Brad today, and he's already won 2. He was obviously the apprentice jockey Eclipse Award winner of last year. And he's actually been riding at Turfway Park, you know, through Saturday, and then on Sundays he carts up here, and then he'll ride some Cox horses or some other horses, but mostly for Brad. And he's been putting on a show so far today. Now, Almost Gone Rocket, you were mentioning Frank Fletcher. He is from Little Rock, and you know, 10 Strike Racing, so Frank is in attendance to watch his filly run. I thought this horse would be a bit lower on the tote board. I just think that might be, there's a lot of quality in this field, because when you look at some of these other horses in here, I can't make a case for it. Like you look at a horse like Lady Moscato, who went through, that we just saw, and now we're looking at the 7. But Lady Moscato at 5-1 is ridiculous. The horse is 0 for 8 with 4 seconds. I mean, there's like 6 other horses in here I'd rather play. The 7 in here, like I was saying, is that first-time starter for Brad Cox. The 9 was professional. She called for Norm Cassie. You know, Norm's about 14% with his first-time starters, but they paid $250,000. So there's some pricey purchases in here. The 11, they paid $485,000, like Andy was mentioning, had a tremendous sale work. So this horse is taking a little money. And then you got the horse, the little horse that they paid for $15,000, the 10, that is, you know, 3-1 on the line, but is right there and has been working great guns in the morning. Bullet drills for Matt Scherer can also get the job done. So you're running into a race with a lot of trainers and a lot of first-time starters that have, you know, pretty good drills. As you take a look at the 9, I thought she looked tremendous. But I'm going to stick with the 7. You know, Brad Cox on the heater looking for a hat trick. You get Concepcion aboard at 2-1. I think the horse is a little bit light. If I was going to go somewhere else, I'd go to the 10. The 10 getting bet the way she's getting bet with all the other pedigrees in this race, she could be dangerous.
I think what Paul makes an interesting point about the number 10 Outwork Mom, and this horse just sold so cheaply in here, and there's a lot of pedigree, but the way this horse is getting bet, because this one didn't have to take any money.
But I like the work tab. I like when work tabs are consistent spacings. It tells you a horse has had, you know, an easy time of it. They haven't had interruptions in their training. They're a healthy horse. She's out of a mare that was a decent race mare on her own right, produced 6 foals, 5 winners, 1 debut winner. So there's winners in the pedigree, and a couple of her works, she's flashed real ability. That 47-2 was a bullet work 2 back. I like the fact that her final gate work was 3 works back. That tells me that she was very proficient leaving the gate, and they didn't have to go back for constant reminders. I think that's important to look at.
The 11 horse, and there's been a lot of conversation over the last week or so about the 2-year-old sales works, the breezes. And this was one of the more impressive breezes you'll see, a 9 3/5 work. And the dam was a good runner. She was great at stakes placed. This was a fast work, a Spitestown, sold for a lot of money, and it's taken almost a year to get to the track.
A sub-10 furlong. Horses will never be asked to do this again in their life, and the gallop out was obviously enormous. I mean, she basically worked out another 1/8 of a mile. You know, interesting, beautiful way she reached over the ground, striding out, but I see things a little bit different. She was actually on her right lead up front and her left lead behind. She was actually cross-firing. And
explain cross-firing to people.
Well, when they switch to their right front foreleg leading, the hind leg's supposed to do the same thing. And in fact, her left hind leg was leading the right hind leg, even though her right front leg was leading the left front leg.
Now, is that something that there are good horses that have done this in the past?
Well, obviously, it didn't inhibit her from going fast. Right. But it wasn't perfect from a mechanical standpoint, and she was still able to cut.
And she still sold for a lot of money. And listen, there are horses that work fast 2-year-old sales going to be very, very good horses. I don't want in any way say, I'm not offering an opinion on this. I have no idea. I don't get involved in 2-year-old sales. It's just been a point of discussion. And this horse worked fast. But we've seen horses that worked well at 2-year-old sales that sold well that have gone on to do some very good things.
Well, absolutely, and it's a barometer. You're seeing some of their ability, but
these are smart people who are buying these horses. They're not a bunch of idiots.
Absolutely, but you know, years ago, before that became such a fashionable thing to do, a lot of horsemen could pick out good horses just by the way they gallop, the mechanics of their stride galloping. They didn't need to see them go fast to know if they were, you know, had potential or not. Personally, I think we've gone a little bit far with it. I'm not a big fan of horses having to go that fast. But for the people out there too that go, well, I think they shouldn't race 2-year-olds or they put too much pressure. They're wrong. If statistically,
They've been proven
it's
wrong.
fact. It's proof. It's not opinion. It's absolute fact that horses that race at 2 stay sounder over the long term.
Right. Now, this is something that is absolutely true and has been proven to be true over time.
Right.
It's one of these complete misnomers that you'll hear people that have an agenda saying that are wrong about that. It's just part of a discussion. And listen, the other thing is, you talk about workouts, private clockers, people watch them work.
Sure.
The final times are not what really determine how good these horses are. It's how they work.
How they work, the intentions of the work. Also, you get Tammy Fox work a horse that goes 59. She weighs 100 pounds soaking wet, right? Another horse works 101 with a 140-pound exercise rider, and we put so much stock in weight in the afternoons. You don't think that matters in the mornings?
I'm just glad we got a Tammy Fox shout-out in the show. I mean, no show is really complete without a mention, of course.
Well, and the late, great Alan Jerkins, one of the best things he ever said to me.
Tammy, by the way.
He said, you don't create champions. Well, the 7-horse just broke
we were almost going to be able to get this race off on time.
And
oh, well.
That is not good because without the rider.
That is the favorite, the number 7, Almost Gone Rocket, who is most likely now going to be.
Well, it looked like she tried to go under the front doors and wound up breaking the front doors open with her head. So we'll see.
We'll have a delay for race
We are going to have a delay.
9. I don't know if Paul is paying attention to what's going on down there, but they're already backing the horses out of the gate. Let's get an update from him, Paul LaDuca.
Yeah, very unfortunate situation here as the 7 filly. You're right, Mig. She ducked under the gate and kind of left her rider like just standing there a little bit. Now, I'm wondering, they were trying to get her, and I think they collared her before she got to the far turn, and everything looks like it's going to be okay. It looks like the rider is okay as well, but when she was ready to run, you broke through that gate, and it just shows you they're 1,000-pound animals, and just luckily that, nothing happened to Axel Concepcion, and now you're going to hear from Matt Dinnerman. They're scratching the 7, obviously, from this race, late scratch. So if you... Well, I don't know if you want to make sure to listen to Matt. You can make sure you can listen to me, Andy. But here's the thing. Now, if you had the 7 in your pick 4s or pick 5s, this is going to get dicey. The 1 is 7-2, the 4 is 7-2, the 9 is 4-1, the 10 is 4-1, and the 11 is 9-2. But we still want to know the health and the safety of the 7. Hopefully everything is okay. When I get a full update, I'll get right back to you.
All right, Paulie, thank you. Of course, we'll be leaving you as soon as this race is over, but it does feel like everybody seems to be okay, and that, of course, is the most important factor. And I'll keep an eye on the tote board and try to give you an update on who actually ends up the post-time favorite, because Paulie's saying, I imagine the pick 4s and pick 5s, you get the post-time favorite if you had the 7 who was favored in here. So there's a lot riding, and keep in mind, with a horse who was 9-5 when scratched, whoever ends up being the post-time favorite in this race will be about 6-5 to even money in the multi-race bet, in the pick 4, pick 5. But everybody else will actually be a higher price than they are at the end. They'll be the price they were before the scratch.
Interesting.
Because they won't be affected. Listen, it's an imperfect situation of an imperfect situation. And, I know that there are calls to try to get an alternate bet, which I totally understand, and there's something to it, but it's complicated. And listen, every horse player has been affected by it. I was alive in a pick 5 and didn't have the horse who was a big favorite in the multi-race bets, and somehow the horse ended up being 3rd choice. I got a gate scratch, and I didn't use the horse that was going to be favored. And somehow the horse ended up 3rd choice by like $200. So it wasn't the favorite at the end, so I didn't cash when the horse won.
Wow.
It's worked out for us sometimes. It hasn't worked out other times. It's an imperfect
But it is a complicated situation,
it is.
right?
It is.
And there really is no easy answer.
No, but on the other hand, it's always important, and it's tough because there's frustration from players, and I'm a player, and I've been a player for a long, long time, and you're always thinking like, everything's conspired against me. We all have this defeatist attitude. It's tough, but on the other hand, it's something going in when you make multi-race bets, and fair or unfair, it is a known fact going in that you sort of have to live with.
So you know the rules going in,
Right.
and unfortunately, sometimes that's the hand you're dealt.
And the question is we'll get more from Paul LaDuca.
Well, the good news is there's good news on both sides. The only bad news is that the 7 is still trotting around the racetrack, and she's having a frolicking good time, to be honest with you. She really is, and she's going back and forth with the outriders. It's really hard to see through the trees, but I was able to catch her on the backside. So they have not caught her yet. She's kind of just having fun, actually. I think she's playing pickle, basically, with the outriders right now. But the other good news is Axel Concepcion, nothing. He was completely fine. So horse and rider are fine. She's just having and the outrider just got her. I just heard it in my ear. So, you know, almost gone rocket. She had a little fun on the racetrack. Now she's going to get back to the barn, and she'll live for another day, Andy. And I think this delay will just last maybe for about another 3, 4, 5 minutes.
I don't know if we have 3, 4, 5 minutes. We're hoping to get this race off. Not sure how much longer we can stay with you. We will do everything we can to bring you this race. She has been caught. They will lead her off the track, and we will hopefully get this race started as soon as possible. But as Paulie said, the most important thing is horse and rider are okay. It appears right now that the number 4, the second-time starter for trainer Robbie Medina, if you're not familiar with Robbie, he was the longtime assistant to Shug McGay. He's been on his own for a couple of years now, and it appears that one is the favorite now, and reasonable chance this horse will be the favorite.
And I like this horse to begin with. I mean, obviously the first time it was taking meaningful money, and so obviously she had shown ability. But I thought the 4-horse Illicit Intention, his first start was very good. And I thought she flashed a lot of ability and a race that you can certainly build on.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. And the thing is that there's no bigger advantage than experience. Sure. A race is worth so much. And that doesn't mean there's not a live firster, but the reality is the only horse that was really asserting itself, at least at the windows, was the number 7, Almost Gone Rocket, which is not to say that there aren't runners in this race that just weren't taking a lot of money.
Well, I was interested even before the scratch in the 10 Outwork Mom of the first-time starters because she had a pedigree to back up that a horse that could win early. The mare is a producer. Harissa was a nice race mare in her own right, and I like the work tab going in. She's 4-1 on the board now. We were talking about, you know, the 2-year-olds and sales, and I was starting to say what Alan Jerkins used to say, Andy, and he said they don't make Olympic champions by sitting on the couch eating chocolate chip cookies. And it's the same premise with horses. They're athletes, and they have to be trained and, you know, fed a certain way and have a certain routine if they are going to be successful as an equine athlete.
Well, I mean, you obviously spent a lot more time around Alan Jerkins, the chief, than I did. But I remember him telling me at Aqueduct years ago, we were talking to a bunch of people, and he said, and when Alan Jerkins talked, everybody listened. He was like E.F. Hutton. And he said, I've lost many more races by undertraining a horse than overtraining them.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he couldn't get over the fact that someone would prepare a horse for the Belmont Stakes and not work further than 5 furlongs. Can't tell you, you know, it's still a phrase on the backstretch, a Jerkins mile, where you would breeze a horse the first half in about 52 or 53 seconds and the second half in 50 seconds, so you get a mile in about 142, 143. That was Jerkins' methods, and a lot of trainers followed suit. And there was no better fun, Andy, and learning experience than if I was done early, go back to his barn and push the feed cart because he was his most relaxed, feeding the horses, and he would tell you things about horses, and his wisdom was just incredible.
The term great gets thrown around way too frequently in today's day and age as far as athletes, horses, anything you talk about, but it cannot be thrown around enough for Alan Jerkins. He was one of the greats, and Alan Jerkins made this game a lot better for many, many people, and I don't think anyone will ever know the number of people around the racetrack that he helped in his life.
Quietly helped more people than you'll be able to count.
Truly great man. I look forward to his son. I'm glad to see Jimmy's doing well over in Saudi Arabia, but I look forward to seeing him back in the States one of these days, too. Good man. Hear from him occasionally, and always happy to hear from him, and hope he continues to do well over there.
Yeah, I will look forward to seeing him back here as well, too.
Good man. Love seeing Jimmy, actually. Love what he texts during the show. I've had quite a few long text conversations with Jimmy during the show. They're almost in the gate, and we think this time we're going to get the 9th off at Oaklawn. Let's get the call from Matt Dinnerman.
Lithe Spirit. Lithe Spirit goes in. We're ready to go. And Laroff in the finale. She Knows in the middle of the field has speed. She Called is up on the pace as well. Light Spirit easing off of them. Lady Moscato down on the inside, not far off, is stalking the pace from the fence. Then comes the Big Kahuna as they're tightly clumped up here. Illicit Intention shuffled towards the back of the field, being joined by Wampus Kitten and a deeper Outwork Mom approaching the far turn run. Look at this. The entire field separated by 4 lengths as they dash into the 4 turn run. She Called as a short lead. She Knows her stablemate 1-2, and She Knows is down on the inside. She's in is trying to advance position, 3 wide, and now She Knows makes a move to the front from the rail. She Called coming back at her. She's it back in third under pressure. Lady Moscato is next in the field trying to pass. Runners here third, right behind the leaders. Has a little run at 3-1 as they swing off the turn. She Called down the lane, has the head lead once again. Lady Moscato poised to pounce on the outside. Up the inside, She Knows is trying to fight back, but Lady Moscato with a powerful run to the lead for the Dwayne Lucas barn, and it's Lady Moscato in front. She Called has run a terrific race in the career debut. She's second, though. Lady Moscato gets it done. She Called. Very solid effort. Put up a good account of herself. Was second. Gallops out well, too. Illicit Intention was third.
Well, it was Wayne Lucas and Andy Off getting it done in the last race with Lady Moscato, not the favorite, however, the second choice. Thanks so much for joining us. A lot more to come next week, though. We will not be on Thursday and Friday. We will join you from 3 to 6. For America's Day at the Races. You'll check your local listing. We will see you next Saturday. And, of course, congrats to all the connections today. Sweet Brown Sugar getting it done in the Eastview. Richie, Maggie, Paul LaDuca, thanks a lot. See you next week. Have a good one.